Hey everybody, welcome to Movie Readings. This is a channel where I read entire Hollywood scripts right here on YouTube. But before we get to the movie reading, this video is sponsored. I've been dabbling in online business for years. I've done e-commerce agencies, affiliates, and now I do content creation. I kept running into the same problem with all these businesses. I tried all of these website builders and other tools online, but I could never recover the costs because they're just so expensive. And that's when I found SiteGround. SiteGround is a premium website hosting site, and it also has free no-code tools for web development that's built in. So you can run all the same businesses that I just showed on the screen for a fraction of the price. What this essentially means is that you can do all the same things, but in a really affordable way. And the best part is, if the original business you set out to make doesn't work out, they even have an option to have unlimited different websites, and it only costs a few bucks. SiteGround is offering an even lower price just for my subscribers right now. The first 10 people who click on the link in the description can get a really good discount. So if you're planning on making 2023 a big year for your business, use SiteGround. I'm telling you, it's actually really, really cool. So with that out of the way, let's proceed with today's movie reading. A dark screen is lit up by twinkling stars. Baba? Yes, my son. Tell me a story. Which one? The story of home. A meteorite drifts into frame, heading toward tiny Earth off in the distance. Millions of years ago, a meteorite made of vibranium, the strongest substance in the universe, struck the continent of Africa, affecting the plant life around it. The meteorite hits Africa, and we see plant life and animals affected by vibranium. And when the time of man came, 5 tribes settled on it and called it Wakanda. The tribes lived in constant war with each other until a warrior shaman received a vision from the Panther goddess Bast, who led him to the heart-shaped herb, a plant that granted him superhuman strength, speed, and instincts. A visual representation of the 5 tribes emerges as hands from the sand animation, and we see them unite, and then break apart as conflict arises. Bashenga rises above the conflict and eats the heart-shaped herb, proceeding to unite the tribes. The warrior became king, and the first Black Panther, the protector of Wakanda. 4 tribes agreed to live under the king's rule, but the Jabari tribe isolated themselves in the mountains. We see the Jabari striding off toward the isolated mountain region. The Wakandans used vibranium to develop technology more advanced than any other nation, but as Wakanda thrived, the world around it descended further into chaos. We see images of war and slavery just outside Wakanda's secretive border. To keep vibranium safe, the Wakandans vowed to hide in plain sight, keeping the truth of their power from the outside world. We see the protective barrier rise around the Wakandan city as we pull back on Earth as it spins, now zooming in on another part of the world. And we still hide, Baba? Yes. Why? We cut to towering apartment buildings looming over the horizon. Kids play pickup basketball on a milk carton hoop when mysterious lights approach from the sky. An African man, Njobu, in his 30s, sorts through firearms and goes over maps with another man, James, in his 20s, African American. Live news footage of the 1992 Los Angeles riots plays on the TV. Hey, look, if we get in and out quick, there won't be any worries. You in the van, come in through from the west, come around the corner, land right here. Me and the twins, pulling up right here, we leaving this car behind, okay? We coming? Suddenly, Njobu hears something that we don't, a familiar sound. Hide the straps. James quickly moves into action, hiding the guns in the walls as Njobu peers out a window and then clears the maps from the table and unrolls a tapestry on the wall, hiding a bulletin board. James cocks a handgun. Is it the feds? No. A knock rattles the door. James walks over and looks out of a peephole, then turns back with a confused expression. It's 2 Grace Jones-looking chicks. They're holding spears. Open it. You serious? They won't knock again. James opens the door, and two Dora Milaje, members of the all-female Wakandan Special Forces, slowly enter, carrying large spears. They eye Njobu. In Xhosa language, subtitled. Who are you? Prince Njobu, son of Azuri. Prove to me you are one of us. Njobu grabs his bottom lip and flips it, revealing a vibranium-threaded tattoo, glowing blue with Wakandan script. The Dora swiftly slam their spears down in unison, making the sound of an EMP. All electronics in the room instantly die out. The room is pitch black, and then, boom! The Dora hit the floor with their spears again, and the lights come back on. Now young T'Chaka, dressed in ceremonial garb of the Black Panther, stands before them. Njobu kneels at the sight of him. He swats James, urging him to do the same. My king! Young T'Chaka looks at James, who gapes in awe. Leave us. This is James. I trust him with my life. He stays, with your permission, King T'Chaka. Young T'Chaka looks at him for a long beat. As you wish. At ease. Young T'Chaka removes his mask and hands it off to the Dora, and the women step out into the hall, closing the door behind them. In Xhosa. Come, baby brother. In English. Let me see how you're holding up. Njobu stands. T'Chaka walks over to him, and they embrace. You look strong. Glory to Bast. I am in good health. How is home? Young T'Chaka's mood darkens. Not so good, baby brother. There has been an attack. Then, young T'Chaka activates a simple-looking beaded bracelet, kimoyo beads, that project a hologram image of Ulysses Clow. This man, Ulysses Clow, stole a quarter-ton of vibranium from us and triggered a bomb at the border to escape. Many lives were lost. He knew where we hid the vibranium and how to strike. Njobu takes the news in. He had someone on the inside. Young T'Chaka waits for Njobu to come clean of the crime. He doesn't. Why are you here? Because I want you to look me in the eyes and tell me why you betrayed Wakanda. I did no such thing. Young T'Chaka snaps a look to James. Tell him who you are. Zuri, son of Badu. What? Njobu's face goes ashen as James is revealed to be young Zuri, a Wakandan spy. Zuri reveals his vibranium lip tattoo. Njobu grabs him. James, you lied to me. I invite you into my home. You were Wakandan this whole time. You betrayed Wakanda. How could you lie to me like... Stand down. Did you think that you were the only spy we sent here? Zuri walks to the wall and removes a duffel bag containing vibranium canisters glowing blue. He shows one to young T'Chaka. Prince Njobu, you will return home at once, where you will face the council and inform them of your crimes. A kid catches a basketball, gazing up as an aircraft with strange lights rises into the sky and speeds off. The ball drops. T'Challa, dressed in his Black Panther armor, sits at the console in the back of the Royal Talon fighter. A BBC News report plays on the screen. The tiny nation of Wakanda is mourning the death of its monarch, King T'Chaka. The beloved ruler was one of many confirmed dead after a terrorist attack at the United Nations a week ago. The suspect has since been apprehended. Though it remains one of the poorest countries in the world, fortified by mountain ranges and an impenetrable rainforest, Wakanda does not engage in international trade or accept aid. The succession of the throne is expected to fall to the oldest of the king's two children, Prince T'Challa. Piloting the craft while seated in lotus position is Okoye, 30s, head of the Dora Milaje. My prince, coming up on them now. An overhead view of a 6-car military convoy, moving like a sinister serpent through the surrounding wilderness. We pull back into the sky, revealing the tip of a futuristic-looking aircraft. This is the Royal Talon Fighter, RTF. T'Challa stands and moves to a sand model of the convoy down below. Okoye gets up out of her chair and grabs her spear off the wall. She moves toward the back of the craft. "No need, Okoye. I can handle this alone." Okoye pauses, then returns her spear to the wall. T'Challa closes the model and steps to a marked circle in the floor. "I will get Nakia out as quickly as possible." Okoye places 6 Kimoyo beads into T'Challa's gloved hands. "Just don't freeze when you see her." "What are you talking about? I never freeze." T'Challa slips on his helmet, revealing him to be Black Panther, and folds his arms over his chest. Okoye opens her closed fist, dropping Panther out of the aircraft. Panther hurtles through the clouds and throws the spheres toward the cars below. The spheres change shape into edged discs that we follow through the air as they zip toward. Wham! The discs mount themselves to the hoods of all the vehicles, sending a sonic ripple through them, stopping the convoy in its tracks. The militant leader, riding shotgun, watches as the driver looks around, confused. He tries turning the key to start the truck up again, but nothing. He grabs his AK-47 and climbs out to the front of the truck, where he spots a disc mounted to it. He tries pulling it off to no avail. He raises his fist. "Defense position!" The militant leader slips down a night vision monocular as the other militants echo the call and begin to fall in line. Packed closely together, several Nigerian women dressed in hijab sit waiting in a cargo truck. A cargo truck militant sits amongst the women, rifle in hand. Next to the young militant, a child soldier no older than 12, we find a woman sitting in the back corner, her eyes observing the militants intensely. This is Nakia, 30s, a Wakandan spy. The cargo truck militant stands up and cocks his rifle. "No games!" He and the young militant exit the vehicle as Nakia watches closely. The pickup's driver climbs out, cocking a submachine gun, and looks into the forest in the wrong direction. Slowly approaching, the militant leader points to shifting foliage in the direction of the Panther. The militants nod, and the militant leader covers them while they go off into the grass. The militants move slowly, following every sound. They point their guns at the base of the tree, but it's just a stray dog. The gunmen approach the tree, eyeing around, then look up to find Panther stalking his prey from the treetops. Into the radio. "What do you see?" Nakia climbs out of the truck while the other captive women look on. "Come in! Come in!" We hear a faint struggle from the road. Then a militant's body is hurled into the side of the pickup truck as the other militants look on in horror. The 50 cal gunner and all the other men in the convoy blindly open fire into the trees. Then, Panther emerges from behind them, flipping into the truck bed and slashing clean through the base of the 50 cal, then taking the gunner out with a single blow. Slipping behind a militant, Nakia picks up the man's rifle and quickly disassembles it as another militant approaches and uses the barrel like a combat stick, puts him on his back out cold. She leaps out onto a second militant, easily taking him down and striking him in the throat. The 4 men don't see the Panther coming and execute a barrage of punches and kicks. Panther viciously dispatches them. He spots the young militant firing at him, then slashes through a car door and throws the door at a militant behind him, taking him out. In a moment of desperation, the young militant rushes out, firing at Panther to no effect. Then, as Panther walks toward him, Nakia dives out and kicks the young militant's gun from his hand and grabs him in a necklock. Swinging around, Nakia kicks Panther in the chest, stopping his momentum. Caught off guard, Panther freezes. "This one is just a boy. He got kidnapped as well." Nakia pulls the wraps from the young militant's face, exposing his preteen expression. She removes her own hijab as well. Panther stares at her for a long beat. "Nakia, I wanted to..." "Hey!" Panther and Nakia turn to find Nigerian militant number 2 holding a captive woman at gunpoint. "I have her! Don't move, I will shoot! I will shoot her right now!" Behind the militant, an unseen figure creeps out of the bush. The figure stands, revealing herself to be Okoye. The militant's rifle is suddenly cut in half by Okoye, who finishes him with another swipe of her spear. You froze. T'Challa removes his helmet, facing Nakia. Why are you here? Eesh, you ruined my mission! My father is dead, Nakia. The news devastates her. I will be crowned king tomorrow, and I wish for you to be there. Nakia looks at T'Challa deeply, then turns, catching eyes with one of the Nigerian captives as Okoye brings them from around the truck. Carry yourselves home now, and take the boy. Get him to his people. The Nigerian woman nods. Thank you. You will speak nothing of this day. T'Challa looks at the young militant for a beat, before he, Nakia, and Okoye disappear through the trees. The Nigerian woman and the young militant look up at the sky as the RTF takes off. At breaking dawn over the Wakandan mountain border, the RTF comes out of stealth mode and becomes visible as it glides over a mountain range. T'Challa and Nakia sit close, silently. Nakia reaches out and touches his hand. He looks at her and smiles. Sister Nakia, my prince, we are home. Nakia approaches the front of the craft with T'Challa. They look out. Several border tribe shepherds look over their flocks of sheep and cattle. As the RTF shadow passes over a straw-thatched hut, several children run out into the pastures, smiling and waving at the prince. 2 border tribe kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, on horseback overtake them. Their horses hurtle ahead at a breakneck pace. The horse riders pump their fists in the air as the RTF soars over a second mountain range. This never gets old. Nakia, T'Challa, and Okoye regard a beautiful rainforest that expands for as far as the eye can see. Okoye dives the plane seemingly right into the trees, when at the last moment it passes through, revealing the forest is a massive hologram, and below, the Golden City, capital of Wakanda. A sprawling metropolis with elaborate veins of public transportation running through it at ground level and high arching skyscrapers. The RTF heads for the Royal Palace, a magnificent building at the center of the city, and touches down on the landing pad. Ramonda, 50s, Queen Mother of Wakanda, and Shuri, 18, Princess of Wakanda, stand on the pad flanked by Ayo. Okoye, Nakia, and T'Challa exit the RTF, and Nakia bows her head. Queen Mother, Princess, my comfort for your loss. Thank you, Nakia. It is so good to have you back with us. Nakia nods. Take her to the river province to prepare her for the ceremony. Yes, General. Ayo nods and walks off with Nakia, while Shuri watches closely. Did he freeze? Like an antelope in headlights. Shuri laughs at this. Are you finished? Okoye slams her spear into the ground, signaling the rest of the Dora to follow her off. T'Challa turns to Shuri. So surprised my little sister came to see me off before our big day. You wish. I'm here for the EMP beads. I've developed an update. Update? No, it worked perfectly. How many times do I have to teach you? Just because something works doesn't mean that it cannot be improved. T'Challa teases. You teaching me. What do you know? Shuri holds out her hand, and T'Challa drops the beads into her hand. Shuri heads off. I cannot wait to see what kind of update you make to your ceremonial outfit. Shuri flips him off. Shuri? T'Challa smiles at this. Sorry, Mother. Ramonda turns to T'Challa. How are you feeling today, Mama? Proud. Your father and I would talk about this day all the time. He is with us, and it is your time to be king. We cut to the British Museum, London. Museum employees congregate outside as tourists and school groups move toward the main entrance. We see a black man in high-end streetwear, around 30 years old. A ring hangs on gold chain around his neck. This is Eric Killmonger. Killmonger stands dangerously close to the glass containing several West African artifacts. They range from what looks like iron gardening tools to masks and short-range weapons. Flanking the room are 2 security guards, slightly unnerved by his presence. We follow the museum director, a British woman, mid-40s, as she enters and walks up behind Killmonger as he studies the war masks. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I was just checking out these artifacts. They tell me you're the expert." "You could say that." "They're beautiful." Killmonger points at one of the masks. "Where's this one from?" "From the Bobo Ashanti tribe, present-day Ghana, 19th century." "For real? What about this one?" "That one's from the Edo people of Benin, 16th century." "Now tell me about this one." Killmonger points to a mining tool off to the side. "Also from Benin, 7th century. Fula tribe, I believe." "Nah." "I beg your pardon?" "It was taken by British soldiers in Benin, but it's from Wakanda. It's made out of vibranium." "Don't trip. I'm gonna take it off your hands for you." She looks at Killmonger like he's crazy. "These items are not for sale." "How do you think your ancestors got these? You think they paid a fair price? Or did they take it, like they took everything else?" "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The museum director subtly looks back at the security guards, then makes a face and touches her stomach. Indigestion. Killmonger smiles and leans over, whispering in her ear. "You've got all this security watching me since I walked in, but you ain't checking for what you put in your body." The museum director looks at Killmonger in terror as the security guard walks up behind him. "All right, mate, let's have it. Come on." "I think she might not be feeling too good." The museum director suddenly slumps to the floor, clutching her stomach. Hey, somebody get help! Come here, call a doctor, please! Hey, please, somebody come help!" The security guards rush to the museum director's aid. Into a radio. "Medical emergency, right away! West African exhibit, please! Right away!" Killmonger stands back and looks toward the door. Linda, a young black barista in a cafe, looks on as two EMTs push a stretcher through the entrance. They head toward the West African exhibit. "I'm going to take a break." Preoccupied with the commotion, her coworker nods and Linda walks out. The EMTs rush in, revealing the face of the lead paramedic. It's Ulysses Clow, Afrikaans, 50. Another EMT, Lembani, mans the door. "Let's give the lady some space, please." "Step back, please, gents, step back." Museum goers quickly beeline for the exit as Clow approaches the guards. Uneasy, the security guards follow Clow's instructions, only to have Clow and Lembani draw silenced pistols and rapidly shoot two of the three dead. Clow looks at one remaining. "Hey, come here. Come here, it's okay. You can go, but don't tell anyone, all right?" The security guard looks back at him unsure and then takes off. Clow then aims and shoots the security guard in the back. Killmonger looks on at him confused. "Bro, why ain't you just shoot him right here?" "Because it's better to leave the crime scene more spread out. It makes us look like amateurs." The lens on a surveillance camera at the corner of the room looks on. Monitors with feeds from the West African exhibit show a looped video of patrons enjoying the displays, as just outside the entrance, Linda exits wearing plain clothes. She eyes her cell phone screen where the same video plays, the source of the loop. Killmonger looks down at the slumped bodies of the guards, turns to Killmonger. "Now, let's see if you know what you're talking about." Clow removes his glove to reveal a bionic prosthetic hand. Clow walks up to the protective glass surrounding a smaller case containing the mining tool and places his hand on it. An invisible charge shatters the glass. "That's just a taste." Clow picks up the mining hammer, studying it. The tool doesn't look like anything special. Clow's hand sizzles blue, and centuries of muck and grunge drop off the hammer, revealing that it's pure vibranium. Clow smells it and smiles. "Whoo, you're gonna be rich, boy." "You better sell that quick." "Oh, it's already sold." Clow waves Lembani over with the stretcher to load the hammer inside. He breaks the wooden handle off the tool, taking only the vibranium head. "Whatever you try, The Wakandans will probably show up. That'll make my day. I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Limbani approaches Killmonger, who eyes a third mask, expertly crafted and slightly haunting. He slides the mask inside the stretcher as well. You're not telling me that's vibranium too? Nah, I'm just feeling it. Killmonger lays atop the gurney, and Limbani places an oxygen mask over his face. The fake EMTs wheel the stretcher out of the exhibit toward the entrance. Clow and Limbani load the gurney into an ambulance and climb in. Killmonger moves toward the front of the truck and gives Linda a kiss before she hits the siren and speeds off. We cut to a Wakandan river, where several incredible barges transport congregations from 4 Wakandan tribes, elders, and their tribal warriors in traditional garb, others in modern Wakandan attire, the Dora Milaje, and Kingsguard with spears and shields downriver. Okoye stands with her second-in-command, Ayo, flanked by a legion of Kingsguard and Dora. Ramonda and Shuri dance. Nakia dances among her tribal leaders. The Dora slam their spears in unison, sonically triggering the massive drains at the top of the waterfall, and we pull back to reveal natural seating built into the rocks below. The Royal Talon fighter flies up to the pool's edge, and T'Challa steps off the aircraft, holding a short spear and shield covered in leopard body paint. The crowd chants. The elders, warriors, and Dora. Nungu T'Challa lo. The crowd. Nungu T'Challa lo. T'Challa bows at Zuri's feet as the RTF lifts away. Thousands of Wakandans stand according to tribe, overlooking a challenge pool. The border tribe, the mining tribe, the merchant tribe, and the river tribe. 5 Kingsguard drummers set up near the challenge pool. Ramonda stands at the edge of the pool with Shuri. Nakia is with the river tribe, Wakabi, the leader of the border tribe army, with the border tribe, and Okoyo with Ayo and the Dora Milaje. In the water, Zuri, now Wakandan's high shaman, holding the massive spear of Bashenga, addresses the arena. I, Zuri, son of Badu, give to you Prince T'Challa, the Black Panther. The elders watch as Zuri holds up a ceremonial vessel containing a mysterious concoction. The prince will now have the strength of the Black Panther stripped away. Zuri pours the solution into T'Challa's mouth. T'Challa reacts violently, choking on the red fluid. T'Challa spasms, his veins expanding and his muscles contracting, as the poison spreads through him. But soon he stops shaking and exhales easy. Zuri turns to the audience. Damaku. The audience replies, Damaku. Victory in ritual combat comes by yield or death. If any tribe wishes to put forth a warrior, I now offer a path to the throne. The merchant tribe warrior calls out. The merchant tribe will not challenge today. Wakabi, the head of the border tribe, calls out. The border tribe will not challenge today. Nakia calls out, representing the river tribe. The river tribe will not challenge today. The mining tribe warrior calls out. The mining tribe will not challenge today. Is there any member of royal blood who wishes to challenge for the throne? On Shuri, as she raises her hand, and a collective gasp is heard among the entire gathering. This corset is really uncomfortable, so could we all just wrap it up and go home? Ramonda pinches her as the elders groan, and the young Wakandans can be heard laughing. Back in the pool, T'Challa smiles and shakes his head. The sound of wooden drums and loud chanting suddenly interrupts. Everyone looks to the mouth of the main cave, where 6 Jabari warriors and 2 Jabari drummers file out. Adorned in elaborate wooden armor, the warriors hold large wooden spears that look like javelins. The Kingsguard coil tightly as, stunning the crowd, the Jabari's imposing leader, M'Baku, emerges last. The audience, where Wakabi and Nakia unsheathe their weapons, and Okoye readies the Dora Milaje. Shuri turns to her mother. Are they Jabari? Yes. Back in the pool, Zuri confronts M'Baku. M'Baku, what are you doing here? It's challenge day. We have watched and listened from the mountains. We have watched with disgust as your technological advancements have been overseen by a child who scoffs at tradition. M'Baku points his spear at Shuri, whose eyes grow large. Ayo steps in front of her. And now you want to hand the nation over to this prince? He steps nose to nose with T'Challa, who could not even keep his own father safe. We will not have it. I said we will not have it. After a beat, I, M'Baku, leader of the Jabari, wish to... T'Challa interrupts. I accept your challenge, M'Baku. Glory to Hanuman. Zuri puts the Panther mask on T'Challa. M'Baku grins and places a wooden gorilla mask over his face. He clenches his fist and calls out for his Jabari soldiers to form a semicircle behind him, pointing their spears at his back. T'Challa lifts his hand and calls out for the Dora, who fall into place behind him, making a perfect circle of spears surrounding the fighters. Zuri raises his hand, ill at ease. Let the challenge begin! The warriors clash, both with great skill. M'Baku with superior strength. T'Challa eludes a salvo of swings, then is driven back by the tip of M'Baku's spear against his shield. Knocking M'Baku's spear free, T'Challa is hammered onto his back, but instantly springs up to dodge more attacks and counter with 2 fierce kicks. M'Baku spits blood and bangs his chest. The rest of the Jabari warriors respond. T'Challa salutes the crowd, and they respond louder. M'Baku charges at T'Challa, knuckle walking, and slipping his assault, T'Challa grabs M'Baku's spear and cartwheels over it to land another kick. The two continue to battle, blocking and trading blunt strikes, until M'Baku delivers a backhand that knocks T'Challa off his feet near the Dora's spears. With the deadly spears at his back, T'Challa blocks colossal overhead blows with his shield, and then M'Baku leans with all his strength, trying to impale T'Challa on the tips. Clubbing M'Baku to his heels, T'Challa rushes forward for an aerial attack, only to be met by a vicious kick to the chest, causing him to lose both his shield and spear. Where is your god now? Defenseless, T'Challa dodges spear swipes before M'Baku corrals him into a bear hug and delivers a crushing headbutt. M'Baku laughs through his mask. No power, no claws, no special suit. Oh, just a boy, not fit to lead. From T'Challa's point of view, we see Ramonda cheering from the sidelines. Show him who you are! T'Challa finds strength in Ramonda's voice. He shakes off the headbutt, stunning M'Baku with savage elbows to free himself. M'Baku retaliates, goring T'Challa's shoulder. I am Prince T'Challa, son of King T'Chaka! On Shuri. You can do this, T'Challa! T'Challa wedges M'Baku's spear under his foot and pulls M'Baku to the pool, flipping his body into a series of leg chokes. M'Baku fights but can't escape. Yield! Don't make me kill you! I would rather die. T'Challa tightens his grip, and M'Baku begins to fade. What would the proud Jabari do without you? T'Challa tightens further. You have fought with honor. Now yield. Your people need you. M'Baku looks up at the Jabari warriors. Yield, man! M'Baku grudgingly reaches out and taps. T'Challa lets him go, and is barely able to stand himself as Zuri steps forward. The crowd erupts as, struggling to catch his breath, T'Challa proudly lifts his arm. I now present to you King T'Challa, the Black Panther. Zuri, my king. Drums begin to play and people start to dance. T'Challa and Nakia stare into each other's eyes amidst the celebration. As T'Challa says, Wakanda forever. The arena echoes the phrase emphatically. We move in on the Hall of Kings. Zuri, wearing ceremonial face paint, mixes a heart-shaped herb concoction and pours it into T'Challa's mouth as he lies in a dirt plot in the middle of the room. Allow the heart-shaped herb to restore the powers of the Black Panther and take you to the ancestral plane. T'Challa closes his eyes. T'Chaka, we call on you. Come here to your son. We see young T'Challa and young T'Chaka smiling at each other. We see images of T'Challa and T'Chaka. The father puts a hand to his son's face lovingly. T'Challa, eyes closed, struggles with the memories as he slips into the ancestral plane. Damaku. The children begin burying T'Challa in the red sand. A flashback to the United Nations building. The explosion kills T'Chaka, and we see T'Challa crawling towards him, then cradling him in his arms. T'Challa puts on his father's ring. Zuri is the last thing T'Challa sees as his face is buried. T'Challa comes out of the dirt. There are stars above. He's in a vast grassland somewhere in Wakanda with wondrous acacia trees. It's surreal and beautiful. A massive acacia tree stands in front of him. T'Challa sees several yellow eyes looking at him and realizes panthers are resting on the branches of the tree. T'Challa approaches. A large panther jumps down, then stands on 2 feet to reveal it's T'Chaka. T'Challa looks at his father and immediately pulls him into a hug. Baba! My son. T'Challa kneels down before his father, overcome with grief. I'm sorry. Stand up. You are a king. T'Challa rises, and they begin to walk. What is wrong, my son? I am not ready, Baba. Have you not prepared to be king your whole life? Have you not trained and studied, been by my side? That is not what I'm talking about. I'm not ready to be without you. A man who has not prepared his children for his own death has failed as a father. Have I ever failed you? Never. Tell me how to best protect Wakanda. I want to be a great king, Baba, just like you. You're going to struggle, so you need to surround yourself with people you trust. You're a good man with a good heart, and it's hard for a good man to be king. T'Challa is aggressively pulled from the dirt by Zuri. Breathe, T'Challa, breathe! T'Challa breathes in deeply, coughing up dirt. His battle wounds have healed. He was there, my father. We cut to downtown Golden City, a bustling futuristic metropolis. T'Challa and Nakia stroll side by side. 4 Dora Milaje shadow them from a distance. Come home, Nakia. I'm right here. Stay. I came to support you and to honor your father, but I can't stay. It's just, I found my calling out there. I've seen too many in need just to turn a blind eye. I can't be happy knowing that there's people out there who have nothing. T'Challa thinks on this. What would you have Wakanda do about it? Nakia thinks for a bit. Share what we have. We could provide aid and access to technology and refuge to those who need it. Other countries do it. We need to do better. We are not like these other countries, Nakia. If the world found out what we truly are and what we possess, we could lose our way of life. Wakanda is strong enough to help others and protect ourselves at the same time. Nakia gives T'Challa a look. If you were not so stubborn, you would make such a great queen. I would make a great queen because I am so stubborn. Ah, so you admit it. If that's what I wanted. We track past several border tribesmen in a field, feeding and watering their pet horses and goats. Finally, we come upon Wakabi feeding M20, his massive pet rhino, by hand. T'Challa stands next to him. Is that him? Glory to Bast, man. Is he still growing? Wakabi laughs. Of course. I see Nakia is back. You guys going to work it out? T'Challa shakes his head and crosses in front of Wakabi. T'Challa, what's wrong? Nakia thinks we should be doing more. More like what? Foreign aid, refugee programs. Wakabi shakes his head. You let refugees in, they bring their problems with them. And then Wakanda is like everywhere else. T'Challa thinks on this. Now, if you said you wanted me and my men to go out there and clean up the world, then I'd be all for it. But waging war on other countries has never been our way. Then, both of their kimoyo beads buzz. You too, huh? Bast, are we in trouble? Their beads combine to project a display of Okoye. My king, my love, you will never guess who just popped on our radar. An ornate chamber overlooking the Golden City. At the top of a golden pyramid, T'Challa, Wakabi, Ramonda, and elders from each tribe, except the Jabari, sit in a circle, as Okoye briefs them. Wakabi and Ramonda flank T'Challa's throne. A misidentified Wakandan artifact was stolen yesterday from a British museum. We have learned Ulysses Clow plans to sell the vibranium to an American buyer in South Korea tomorrow night. There are audible murmurs at the name of Ulysses Clow. Clow has escaped our pursuits for almost 30 years. Not capturing him was perhaps my father's greatest regret. I wish to bring Clow back here to stand trial. The merchant tribe elder says, Wakanda does not need a warrior right now. We need a king. My parents were killed when he attacked. Not a day goes by I do not think about what Clow took from us. From me. It's too great an opportunity to pass. Take me with you. We'll take him down side by side, eh? I need you here protecting the border. Then I ask, you kill him where he stands, or you bring him back to us. You have my word I will bring him back. We will proceed with the mission. Ramonda looks on, irresolute. Mount Bashenga, the great mound, where a meteorite hit, creating a cliff face on one side and a large hill on the other. A dragon flyer lands outside the Wakandan design group. T'Challa walks with 4 Dora, including Ayo. The Dora stop outside Shuri's lab. As T'Challa pushes inside, Shuri approaches and bows her head. My king, stop it, stop it. Shuri laughs and they do a special handshake before we walk down the spiral walkway into her sprawling futuristic lab. It's a nexus of technology. Shuri strolls with T'Challa by work tables of high-tech weapons and gadgets. I've already sent a car ahead to Busan for you. Who are you taking with you to Korea? Okoye and Nakia as well. Shuri makes a face at Nakia. You sure it's a good idea to take your ex on a mission? Yes, we'll be fine. Besides, you will be on call, should we need backup. Shuri smiles at this and points out small communications devices. I have great things to show you, brother. Here are your communication devices for Korea. Unlimited range, also equipped with audio surveillance system. She walks him over to another table with WDG discs on them. Check these out. Remote access kimoyo beats. Updated to interface directly with my sand table. Curious, T'Challa notices a pair of sleek shoes. And what are these? The real question is, what are those? Why do you have your toes out in my lab? Shuri points at T'Challa's traditional sandals. T'Challa smiles. What, you don't like my royal sandals? I wanted to go old school for my first day. Shuri rolls her eyes. Yeah, I bet the elders loved that. Try them on. T'Challa puts his feet into the shoes, and they lace up instantly, forming a perfect fit. Fully automated, like the old American movie Baba used to watch. I made them completely sound absorbent. T'Challa stomps his foot down without a sound. Interesting. Guess what I call them? T'Challa thinks on this. Sneakers. T'Challa looks at her blankly. Because you... Never mind. Shuri walks T'Challa over to 2 mannequins. One wears T'Challa's current suit, the other just a panther tooth necklace. If you're going to take on Clow, You'll need the best the design group has to offer. Shuri points at T'Challa's current suit. Exhibit A, old tech. Old? Functional, but old. Oh, people are shooting at me. Wait, let me put on my helmet. T'Challa smiles, amused. Enough. Shuri points to the necklace. Now look at these. T'Challa spots a gaudier gold-tooth necklace. She notices. Do you like that one? Tempting, but the idea is not to be noticed. This one. Shuri uses her kimoyo beads to sync the suit to T'Challa, pointing at the necklace. Now tell it to go on. T'Challa does, and without warning, millions of vibranium-laced nanites spill from the necklace and form a new Black Panther suit around the mannequin. Oh, the entire suit sits within the teeth of the necklace. Strike it. Anywhere? Mm-hmm. T'Challa turns to the mannequin in a relaxed fighting stance. Shuri nods, and T'Challa spin kicks the shit out of the mannequin. Not that hard, genius. You told me to strike it. You didn't say how hard. Shuri picks the mannequin up and drags it over to the same spot. I invite you to my lab and you kick things around. Well, maybe you should make it a little stronger, eh? Shuri shrugs as we see Wakandan script built into the suit, glowing indigo where the impact of T'Challa's foot landed. T'Challa looks closely at the glowing script. Wait a minute. The nanites absorb the kinetic energy and hold it in place for redistribution. Very nice. Now strike it again, in the same spot. T'Challa backs up for a kick. Shuri presses record on her kimoyo. T'Challa sees this and looks at her suspiciously. You are recording? For research purposes. T'Challa loads up, and then BAM! He kicks the indigo spot and goes flying across the room, crashing into a table full of Shuri's gadgets. She cracks up. Delete that footage. We move over the beautiful Busan city skyline at night. A Lexus sedan drives through the market and pulls into a parking stall next to several expensive-looking luxury cars. T'Challa, Okoye, and Nakia climb out of the sedan, dressed to kill. A wig covers Okoye's tattooed head. This way. Bast willing this goes quickly, and I can get this ridiculous thing off my head. It looks nice. Just whip it back and forth. What? It's a disgrace. Looky-loos stare as Nakia leads them to an elderly woman, Korean, selling fish in front of an alley. Nakia greets her in perfect Korean. Hello, Sophia. Good to see you. Nakia smiles, but the elderly woman doesn't smile back. Who are these two? My friends from Kenya. Very deep pockets. They're good. Good for trouble, like you? An awkward pause, then she smiles. A large Korean tough wearing a black suit emerges from the alley and motions for the Wakandans to follow him in. Thank you. A small dark room with a back door, with a Korean character on it and two more Korean goons guarding each side. They eye our heroes closely as they step through a large metal detector and are wanded down. The door opens and they pass into the upper balcony of a buzzing high-class casino. There are a few gaming tables on the balcony level and a bustling pit down below. Spread out, the buyer is likely already here. Okoye heads for the balcony vantage point, while T'Challa and Nakia go down to the first floor. The woman outside. What trouble is she referring to? She plays along, alluring. I got into a disagreement with some ivory traders. Made a bit of a mess. And will there be any trouble tonight, Miss Kenyan heiress? Depends on how quickly we finish the mission. Can we please focus? T'Challa and Nakia split up. T'Challa heads for the pit, and Nakia walks over to the bar, on Okoye. Thank you. Nakia slips into a seat at the bar and looks around, clocking the room. Over here. 1 whiskey, please. Eyes up. Americans. I count 3. We see Nakia's point of view as she makes 3 CIA agents on the first floor spread out under the balcony. 5. How could you miss greased lightning there behind you? Standing over the balcony looking, Okoye spots 2 more CIA agents, both with greased hair. An elegant waitress carries a tray of drinks to a craps table where we find T'Challa. The woman places the drinks down as T'Challa peers across the gambling pit at someone he recognizes and starts that way. 6. Just spotted an old friend who works for the CIA. It just got a little more complicated. T'Challa steps up to another crowded craps table next to Everett Ross, the 6th CIA agent he spotted. Agent Ross. Your Highness? Ross plays it cool. You are buying from Clow? What I'm doing or not doing on behalf of the U.S. government is none of your concern. Now, whatever the hell you're up to, do me a favor and stay out of my way. I gave you Zemo. And didn't I keep it under wraps that the king of a third world country runs around in a bulletproof catsuit? I'd say we're even. Ross places a pass bet. T'Challa dumps a stack of chips on don't pass. All of the shooter's friends blow on the dice. You really need to leave. Now. They watch the dice roll. They land on 3. The dealer takes away Ross's bet and slides T'Challa's massive payout over to him. Clow is leaving out that door with me. You've been warned. T'Challa walks toward another craps table, leaving the pile of chips behind. Money means nothing to him. Hey, you won, to the empty chair. Ross scratches his brow as a thirsty gambler, Stan Lee, who is sitting next to T'Challa, grabs them. Ross eyes the thirsty gambler, who shrugs. You know what? I think I'll just take these. Bring 'em over here and hold on to 'em for safekeeping. He slides them all onto the don't pass bet, and Ross walks off in search of T'Challa. Into his comms. Okay, heads up, the king of Wakanda is here. He cannot leave with Clow. T'Challa stands at a roulette table when Ross walks up to him. Alright, vibranium from the attack on Sokovia links back to a person that I'm not actually saying that I'm here to make a deal with, but that deal will not be called off. When the dust settles, you and I can work something out. I am not here to make that deal. Ross rolls his eyes. Back in the market, several black forerunners pull up in front of the Korean woman, and a platoon of 8 South African toughs dressed in suits hop out of the truck protecting Clow. Clow winks at the Korean woman as he passes her. She smiles back and nods to the tough behind her. Clow and his men walk through the metal detector, and every single one of them is lit up. The tough watches as they go through. Clow and his 8 men entourage confidently stream inside the casino, spreading out across the balcony, gaining every vantage point. Ross and T'Challa at a stalemate. And then Nakia off screen. Clow, +8. Ross looks to the entrance and immediately moves away from T'Challa. T'Challa watches Ross approach a third craps table. T'Challa watches his back to avoid being seen. General, in position to secure our exit. And the vibranium. On Nakia, who changes position from the bar to the craps table, where T'Challa was initially standing. I don't see it yet. On Okoye. As 2 of Clow's toughs post up on either side of her on the balcony, she tries to play it cool as they look around at the patrons suspiciously. I thought there were no weapons allowed in here. There's not supposed to be. Someone did not get the memo. Definitely armed. On Clow, who spots Ross and smiles as he heads down the stairs, flanked by a couple of his toughs. Ross keeps his cool as Clow approaches. Well, that is quite the entourage. You got a mixtape coming out? Clow cuts Ross a look. Hey, yeah, actually there is one. Shocked, Ross is unsure if Clow is serious. I'll send you the SoundCloud link if you like. Clow turns to one of his goons. Hey, Dave, get him the link to the mixtape. The South African tough reaches into his pocket for his phone. Please, don't make me listen to your music. I just meant you got a lot of people with you. Oh, you think they're for you? Clow laughs at this. Don't worry, I can deal with you all by myself. Thank you very much. He rubs Ross on the shoulder hard and for way too long, as several more South African toughs come pouring in out of the VIP lounges. 6 more. It's a setup. You got the diamonds? Clow is still rubbing Ross's shoulder. Okay, that's enough. A CIA agent walks a fancy slim briefcase toward Ross. On Nakia. We need to move on Clow. On T'Challa. Stand down. We can't afford a shootout. Ross eyes Clow as the CIA agent brings him the briefcase. The vibranium? Clow looks around and reaches into his pants. He pulls out a wrinkled, sweaty paper bag with fragile written on it with a Sharpie. Ross looks at the bag. I was gonna buy a fancy suitcase, but I thought I'd save myself some money. It's now or never. Nakia continues toward the CIA agent. Stand down! A South African tough hears her and turns toward her. Hey! Okoye pretends she doesn't hear him. Hey! I've been made. Okoye starts for the stairs when another tough moves to cut her off. Okoye slows down and the tough trailing behind her reaches out to grab her hand and turn her around. As soon as the goon touches Okoye, she twists him into an armbar, throws her purse at the other tough, and extends her spear, stabbing the other tough in the foot. She then throws her wig into the armbar tough's face and hurls him over the railing. Downstairs, the armbar tough crashes down onto a gaming table behind Clow and startled patrons, which scramble in every direction. Clow spins toward the commotion as Clow looks back to Ross and spots T'Challa. Producing a handgun from his waist, Clow opens fire on Ross and the CIA agent. Ross uses the slim suitcase as a shield as he ducks down below the craps table, and T'Challa leaps to action, kicking and flipping the table on its edge to block gunfire from Clow's other toughs. With bullets flying everywhere, panicked people run for their lives. It's chaos. Surrounded by toughs, Clow retreats for the stairs. Get the diamonds, quick! Every one of Clow's toughs unload, raining shells on the overturned craps tables, with Ross and T'Challa behind it. The toughs move in only to have T'Challa leap from the table, stay low to foot sweep one onto his back. T'Challa kicks him back and then disarms another tough and kicks him into the bar. T'Challa then spins and kicks the next tough over the roulette table and through the bar railing. Nakia grabs a goon in an arm twist, trying to relieve him of his gun. She takes off one shoe and knocks out another approaching gun. Swings the arm-twisted goon to the floor, knocks him out, takes his gun, shooting up toward the balcony where Okoye is fighting. Okoye battles 2 toughs with her full-length spear, dropping both with proficiency. She kicks the gun away from one, fights another with her spear, then kicks a tough over the rail. Okoye jumps down to the casino floor and stabs the goon on her way down, tucks and rolls. Okoye takes out a tough with her spear. Nakia flips a tough over her back. T'Challa sends a tough and table flying, beats down 2 more toughs. He turns for more. T'Challa spots Clow nearing the entrance and breaking away from the fight. He leaps halfway up onto a column and bounds off to the upper balcony. T'Challa lands 10 feet behind Clow. Murderer! Clow stops and turns around to face T'Challa. He tries to fire his gun, but discovers he's out of ammo. Clow smiles, dropping his gun, and puts his hands up, as Clow's prosthetic left arm suddenly splits open, revealing itself to be a sonic disruptor. You You look just like your old man. T'Challa snatches up a rolling change cart table just as Clow fires the blaster at him. Boom! A colossal sonic blast hits the cart, blowing it to pieces and sending T'Challa flying through the upper balcony railing back down into the pit. With money floating in the air, T'Challa lands hard. I made it rain! Nakia and Okoye make their way to the top of the stairs, as Clow and Four Toughs exit with Nakia and Okoye giving chase. That was awesome! That was awesome! Let's go! Go, come on! Clow jumps in the first of 4 idling Forerunners. The convoy instantly skids away as Nakia and Okoye emerge. Okoye throws an EMP bead from her pocket and it lands on a parked Lexus LC. Do we just leave him? He'll catch up. Nakia starts the car and Okoye climbs in. T'Challa sprints out of the casino. Shuri! Shuri stands in front of a rectangular vibranium casing that lowers. The sand inside forms into the Lexus LC's cockpit. Remote driving system activated. Shuri, excited. Yes, yes, yes! Wait, which side of the road is it? We see a 3-dimensional hologram view from inside the Lexus LC's cockpit appear as Shuri climbs in. For Bast's sake, just drive! Okay, calm down, brother. Panther sprints after the cars as nanites scramble from his necklace, covering his entire body, forming his new mask over his face. Black Panther. Panther continues running as the Lexus pulls up behind him. At the last second, he single leg flips and lands on the hood of the Lexus LC, digging his hand and boot claws into the hood as it screams off. Woo! Let's go! Clow turns to the driver of the Forerunner. Put some music on. What do you think this is, a funeral? The Forerunners cross through one intersection at speed, then make a hard right at the next intersection. Nakia remains on them, as at the far end of the street we see Panther's Lexus LC join the chase. The convoy makes a right at a T and races down a 2-lane street toward a split in the road. The first, Clow, and third Forerunners continue on the 2-lane street with Nakia's Lexus sedan on their tail. Which one is he now? Clow picks up his radio. Hey, split up! They're trying to lose us. We'll take the right. While the second and fourth SUV skid left down a single-lane road followed closely by Shuri's Lexus LC. Shuri, a skilled driver, shifts gears, darting left, in behind the trucks with Panther anchored on top. We'll take the other 2. I see a shortcut. With the Lexus LC closing in, the second and fourth Forerunners make a right turn, dropping down a steep hill. Panther chases the SUVs off the hill. The lead SUV collides with a car in crossing traffic. We're not going to make it! Keep going! Panther uses his claws to make a sharp turn to avoid the wreck. Woo, brother! Panther catches up with the rear SUV. He takes fire and leaps onto the roof of the SUV. Panther rips the SUV roof open. The scared driver leaps out of the car, causing the SUV to collide with parked cars in a Sidewinder crash. Shuri runs over the escaped driver on accident. Hey, what was that? Don't worry about it. You're doing great. Panther leaps back onto the hood of the Lexus and they speed off. Clow looks back as Nakia closes in. The driver floors it as a gunman in the third SUV opens fire on Nakia's Lexus. The bullets caroom off the top. Nakia and Okoye, unfazed by the gunfire. Guns, so primitive. Clow barks into his comm. It's a vibranium car, you idiots! Bullets won't penetrate! Okoye slides out of the passenger window and climbs onto the roof, stabbing her short spear into the top of the vehicle as a handle, her dress blowing in the wind. What are you doing? Just drive. Yeesh. Nakia drops back and weaves through traffic as Okoye engages her spear mechanism, then steadies herself and lets her long spear fly, launching the weapon like a javelin. The spear rockets through the rear and front window of the truck, spiking the ground and bringing the SUV to a stop with the force of a head-on collision. Woo! Oh, shoot! The second and fourth SUVs tear from the hills onto the Diamond Bridge, with Panther's Lexus right behind them. Closing in, Panther takes heavy gunfire. Speeding through busy bridge traffic, Panther surfs the roof of the bullet-riddled LC. Hey, look at your suit! You've been taking bullets, charging it up with kinetic energy. Panther looks down at the glowing glyphs of kinetic energy built into his suit. Pull around the truck. The LC accelerates ahead, closing in on the second SUV. But just as Panther is about to look inside, a passing tractor-trailer blocks his view. The 4Runner loses sight of Panther as he leaps to the trailer, bounding across the top of the big rig, separating the Lexus and the 4Runner. Klau's gunmen search furiously for Panther as the Lexus LC suddenly cuts in front of them without Panther on top. Where did he go? Then, out of nowhere, Panther lands hard on the hood of the SUV. Looking inside, Panther doesn't see Klau and launches off the 4Runner, distributing the kinetic energy from his suit with immense concussive force, causing both trucks to crash and flip down the bridge. Shuri swerves the Lexus, skillfully catching Panther on the roof again. You show off! Nakia's Lexus sedan trails Klau's 4Runner, both going airborne over the hilltops. There he is! Hold tight! As the SUV catches air over a rise in the road, Klau slides his body out of the truck. Right, let's have some fun. Sitting on the windowsill, Klau aims his sonic disruptor. Nakia is locked in, and Okoye prepares to throw her spear again, but they suddenly lose sight of Klau as the Lexus hits the rise. Again, Klau's 4Runner launches off a second, steeper rise. Nakia loses sight of Klau again as the SUV lands hard on the downside of the hill. Klau, still at speed, steadies his disruptor as Nakia's Lexus appears in midair over the rise. He fires. Klau's sonic shot hits the Lexus sedan head-on and dismantles it, piece by piece to its struts, sending Nakia and Okoye flying. Okoye twists through the air, her feet remain planted on a shredded piece of the car's roof. She lands on her feet, speed skating to a stop. Nakia skids up next to Okoye on the driver's seat, still buckled in. Ross pulls up in a Suburban and stops in front of Nakia and Okoye. Hop in. Put that spear in the trunk. T'Challa to Shuri. Faster! Tracking Klau's SUV, Shuri drives in the sand cockpit. I'm going as fast as I can. We see Klau's 4Runner racing against the Centum City Bridge. The Diamond Bridge can be seen in the background. Klau is back inside the SUV as it weaves through traffic. Then, he spots a rapidly closing Lexus LC with Panther on the roof. Klau turns to his driver. Take a right! Take a right! Klau's 4Runner and Panther's LC make left turns, booking down a short road and then making a quick right. The 4Runner barrels along a brightly lit 2-lane road with the Lexus LC chasing. Unnerved, seeing Panther close in, Klau slides his body back into the SUV windowsill as his driver makes a sharp right onto a wider avenue. Determined, Shuri rounds the turn focused. The digital dash shows 115 miles per hour and climbing. But hanging out of the truck, Klau fires a massive sonic blast that Shuri can't evade. No, 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 no! Hit. The Lexus LC suddenly goes to pieces, whole parts and paneling to a million fragments. Shuri's driver's seat explodes into a trillion grains of sand. She hits the floor. Brother! But Panther launches himself out of the disassembling car toward a building. In 4 strides along the side of the structure, he leaps off at Klau's 4Runner. Klau's driver spots Panther flying at them and tries to swerve, but Panther latches to the side of the SUV and digs in with his claws. Panther grabs the rim of the front tire and stops the wheel dead in its tracks. The lug nuts shear off from the force, and Panther discards the tire, causing the truck's nose to crash down, skidding across the street with sparks flying. Panther rolls clear as the Forerunner hits the curb and flips over to its roof and slides to a stop in the middle of a busy outdoor cafe as its patrons scramble. With the SUV upside down and customers looking on, Panther approaches to find Clow struggling to climb out of his window. Clow! Clow slowly gets to his feet and tries to level his disruptor, but running up, Panther evades the blast and is only nicked on the shoulder. Panther grabs Clow's arm, clawing into the sonic disruptor, and completely pulls it off. Did you think we would forget? Clow laughs. Look at me, murderer! Where did you get this weapon? Your savages didn't deserve it. T'Challa grabs him by the throat and slams him into the SUV. Oh, mercy! King, mercy! Seething, Panther exposes his claws, prepared to strike. Every breath you take is mercy from me. King! In Xhosa language. T'Challa turns to find Okoye and Nakia getting out of Ross's Suburban. The world watches. The pier has crowded with Koreans, recording them on cell phones, as sirens can be heard in the distance. Come on, guys, let's go, huh? T'Challa eyes around. He has little choice, and nods. We cut to a travel agency, fast-paced and loud. South Korean employees busily work at desks. Nakia is among them, watching the passing cars on guard duty. Agents and CIA analysts move about. On the table sits Clow's prosthetic weapon, and the vibranium sitting atop the paper bag. Clow, strapped to a chair, makes faces at the two-way glass. Hello? I can see you! I can see you! So this is a big mess, huh? I figure we can do the good cop, bad cop. I'll go talk to him first, and then you guys go in. Okoye turns to T'Challa. We can't let him talk to Clow alone. Better to let him talk to Clow alone for 5 minutes than to make a scene here. T'Challa turns to Ross. After your questioning, we will take him back to Wakanda with us. Ross stares at T'Challa for a beat. What? No. Look, I like you a lot, but he's in my custody now. He's not going anywhere. Listen, I'm doing you a favor by letting you even be in here. Ross reaches out and touches T'Challa. Okoye steps in. If he touches you again, I'm going to impale him to this desk. Ross looks at Okoye, sensing the thinly veiled threat. He looks to T'Challa. Does she speak English? When she wants to. Ross and Okoye eye each other for a long beat. I'm going in, and when I'm done, you guys are up. Agent Ross. Yeah? T'Challa puts his hand on Ross's shoulder. I do appreciate your help in Busan. You see that? It's called diplomacy. You're welcome. Ross walks through the door, closing it behind him. Okoye, play nice. Americans. Strapped to his chair in the interrogation room, Clow sings. You know, you really shouldn't trust the Wakandans. I'm much more your speed. I don't trust anybody, not in this job. What I am interested in is that arm cannon out there. Where'd you get that? It's an old mining tool that I made some adjustments to. I can get you one if you like. Why don't you give me the name of your supplier and I'll ask them? He's right outside. Why don't you ask him yourself? T'Challa, you're telling me that weapon on your arm is from Wakanda? Clow nods. Bingo! What do you actually know about Wakanda? Shepherds, textiles, cool outfits? Ross stops as we notice a micro audio bug on his shoulder that T'Challa planted before he entered the room. T'Challa and Okoye secretly listen to Clow's interrogation. It's all a front. Explorers searched for it for centuries. El Dorado, the Golden City. They thought they could find it in South America, but it was in Africa the whole time. A technological marvel, all because it was built on a mound of the most valuable metal known to man. Isifo, they call it. The gift. Vibranium. Vibranium, yes, strongest metal on Earth. It's not just a metal. They sew it into their clothes. It powers their city, their tech, their weapons. Weapons? Ah, yes. Makes my arm cannon look like a leaf blower. That's a nice fairy tale, but Wakanda is a third world country, and you stole all their vibranium. Laughing. I stole all of it? Clow can barely control himself. All of it? I took a tiny piece of it. They have a mountain full of it. They've been mining it for thousands of years. Still haven't scratched the surface. I'm the only outsider who's seen it and got out of there alive. If you don't believe me, you ask your friend what his suit is made of, what his claws are made of. Ross looks back at the two-way glass and then heads toward the door. Ross exits the interrogation room and approaches T'Challa and Okoye. Limbani drives with Linda in the passenger seat in a back alley of South Korea. Attached to the dashboard is a GPS tracking tablet device with a blinking beacon, Clow's prosthetic, inside the travel agency. We also see everyone's heat signature, including Clow sitting alone. Through the front window, Nakia watches a paint truck pass the building that just doesn't seem right. Ross studies T'Challa. Your father told the UN that Clow stole all the vibranium you had, but now he's telling me you have more? And you believe the word of an arms dealer strapped to a chair? Ross hesitates, but doesn't bite. The truck pulls to a stop at the rear of the building. Killmonger emerges from the back of the truck with an assault rifle and a grenade launcher attachment. On a computer monitor, we see camera feeds from outside the black site. Nakia wanders past the desk, eyeing over a travel agency employee, who's really a CIA agent, shoulder and freezes. The security camera feed shows the alley to be empty, but there's a visible glitch in the footage. Where is that? Back there. He points in the direction of the interrogation room. Killmonger slips on the African mask from the British Museum, then carries a daisy chain of explosives toward the building. He sets the charges against the outer wall of Clow's room and fearlessly leans against the structure next to the charges. He holds a detonator in his hand as Linda and Limbani lean against the wall next to him. How much more are you hiding? And then suddenly, Nakia slams through the door. CIA agents draw their weapons. Nakia is unfazed. Something is happening out back. Then, boom! The charges blow, carving a hole in the wall. Startled, they all break for the interrogation room, but Killmonger suddenly spins inside, laying down cover fire, riddling the doorway with bullets and shattering the two-way glass. Besieged with automatic gunfire, everybody ducks down in the office. On instinct, Ross shoves Nakia to the floor, taking a round in the back, saving her, while T'Challa's suit forms and he shields the CIA agent. Okoye dives clear of the doorway. The other agents scramble out into the travel agency for cover. Linda and Limbani grab Clow, carrying his entire chair with him, still strapped to it. As edging back toward the breach, Killmonger throws a live grenade through the shattered two-way window into the black site office. Panther instantly dives on the grenade and it explodes, doing no damage to him or the room, but it lights up his entire suit. Panther bounds back to his feet to give chase as Clow cackles maniacally, being loaded into the paint truck by Linda and Limbani. I see you took your time, didn't you? Killmonger continues to fire as Limbani and Linda hop in and begin to pull off. Walking backward after the truck, Killmonger swings the RPG up to his shoulder as Panther emerges. The truck turns out of the alley as Killmonger aims. Panther charges at Killmonger and he fires. Taking the rocket head on, Panther is engulfed in the massive impact and blown backwards. Panther's suit is lit to the max with kinetic energy. As he labors back to his feet, he spots the ring dangling around Killmonger's neck on his gold chain. It's identical to the ring T'Challa inherited from T'Chaka in the first scene. "My king!" Panther turns to find Okoye. "My king, it's Nakia!" Panther and Okoye enter, discovering agents and Nakia hovering around Ross on the floor. The receptionist, also an agent, applies pressure to his gunshot wound as the male CIA agent checks his pulse. Shaken, Nakia looks to Panther. "He just jumped in front of me." Gravely wounded, Ross is barely conscious. "I don't think he'll make it here. It hit his spine." "Give me a Kamoyo bead." T'Challa looks at Nakia and motions toward her Kamoyo bead. She pulls one off and hands it to him. T'Challa inserts it into Ross's wound. "This will stabilize him for now. Give him to us. We can save him." The agents stare at Panther, his glowing high-tech suit. Okoye is at the helm, with Nakia standing next to her. Neither can believe Ross is on board the Royal Talon fighter. Further back in the aircraft, we find Ross's unconscious body. T'Challa looms nearby, lost in thought. "Our mission was to bring back Clow. We failed. This man is a foreign intelligence operative. How do we justify bringing him into our borders?" "He took a bullet for me." "That was his choice." T'Challa stiffens. Okoye has gone a little too far. Torn, Nakia stares off, thinking about the Nigerian women they didn't bring back to Wakanda and her culpability in Ross's injury. "So now we are just supposed to let him die? Let us consider that we heal him. It is his duty to report back to his country, and as king, it is your duty to protect ours." "I am well aware of my duties, General. I cannot just let him die knowing we can save him." Okoye chagrined. "Where exactly are we taking him?" Shuri covertly leads T'Challa, Okoye, and Nakia inside the Wakandan design group. Carrying Ross's body on a maglev stretcher, she turns to T'Challa. "Great! Another broken white boy for us to fix. This is going to be fun." T'Challa cuts Shuri a look. Ross is placed on a table, surrounded by futuristic medical equipment, as Shuri works on him. "He will live." The security alarm on Shuri's Kamoyo bead goes off. "Wakabi is here." Shuri, Nakia, and Okoye quickly hide. T'Challa hurries up the ramp. Hoping for good news, Wakabi approaches T'Challa. "What's going on, brother? Where is Clow?" "He's not here." T'Challa's eyes lower regretfully. "He slipped through our hands." "Slipped? For 30 years your father was in power and did nothing. With you, I thought it would be different. But it's more of the same." Deeply disappointed, Wakabi can't muster words. He looks at T'Challa and walks out. We cut to an airplane graveyard. The paint truck pulls to a stop on the airstrip. Killmonger, Clow, Limbani, and Linda hop out and hump their gear into a 4-seater escape plane parked on the airstrip. "Let's get going, boss." "You always sell to the CIA?" "I sell to the highest bidder. Don't you worry when I get back to Joburg and lay low for a bit. I'll make sure both you guys get paid." "Oh, I ain't worried about the money. Bro, I know you're good for it." Klaus smiles. "On our way back, just drop us off in Wakanda." "You don't want to go there, boy." "Yeah, I do." Killmonger suddenly draws a handgun and shoots Limbani dead. Reacting to the shot, Clow crowds Linda with a skilled grappling move and snatches her gun away before she can fire on him. Killmonger finds Clow holding Linda's gun to her head, using her as a shield. Clow stumped. "Drop it, or your little Bonnie and Clyde routine ends today. Put your gun down now." I'm sorry, Eric." "It's gonna be okay." Killmonger fires without hesitation. The bullet travels through Linda, killing her, while Clow dives behind the plane, wounded in the shoulder from the round. Killmonger moves to finish Clow, but he's gone. Following Clow's blood trail, Killmonger stalks Clow through the scrapyard. Clow fires at Killmonger, missing. Killmonger stops and turns, ducking between planes. Killmonger spots Clow through the glass of a cockpit window and fires. Sniped through the window with precision, Clow falls, losing Linda's gun. Killmonger approaches, and Clow rolls to his back to face him. You really want to go to Wakanda? They're savages! Clow shows his branded neck. This is what they do to people like us. I ain't worried about no brand. Check these out. Killmonger rolls up his sleeve, uncovering several African scarification marks on his forearm. Each one is for a kill. You can scar yourself as much as you like. To them, you'll just be an outsider. You're crazy to think that you could walk in there. Killmonger flips the inside of his bottom lip, revealing a glowing Wakandan tattoo. Clow can't believe his eyes. And to think, I saw you as some crazy American. Clow starts laughing hard. Killmonger aims and pulls the trigger at point-blank range. T'Challa enters to find Zuri tending to the garden in the Hall of Kings. He looks around to the other shamans. Leave us! They immediately head out. Zuri turns to T'Challa. So your mission did not go as planned. What happened to my uncle N'Jobu? My father told me he disappeared. There was a man today wearing a ring identical to this one. Zuri turns back, and T'Challa lifts his hand, showing his vibranium ring from close up. Zuri turns away, uncomfortable. That is not possible. He helped Clow escape from us, and he was wearing this ring, my grandfather's ring. Do not tell me what is possible. Tell me the truth. Some truths are too much to bear, T'Challa. That is not your choice to make. What happened to him? I promised the king to say nothing. I am your king now. Zuri looks up. Your uncle took a war dog assignment in America. Your father placed me there to observe, unbeknownst to him. Your uncle fell in love with an American woman. They had a child. The hardships he saw there radicalized your uncle. N'Jobu makes his plea to young T'Chaka, picking up where we left off in the Oakland sequence. I observed for as long as I could. Their leaders have been assassinated, communities flooded with drugs and weapons. They're overly policed and incarcerated. All over the planet, our people suffer because they don't have the tools to fight back. With vibranium weapons, they could overthrow every country, and Wakanda could rule them all. The right way. He knew your father would not support this, so your uncle betrayed us. No. He helped Clow steal the vibranium. No, no! Young T'Chaka turns to N'Jobu. You will return home at once, where you will face the council and inform them of your crimes. N'Jobu reaches into his waistband and pulls a handgun, aiming it at James, young Zuri's head, freezing him. He drew this weapon on me. Young T'Chaka pops his claws. He quickly springs forward, digging his claws into the slide and destroying it before he can pull the trigger. He then buries his claws into N'Jobu's chest, killing him instantly. He lets N'Jobu's body drop to the floor and closes his eyes. Your father killed his own brother to save my life. Young Zuri looks at young T'Chaka with tears welling up in his eyes. Speak nothing of this. And the child. We left him. One of the young kids playing basketball, who's now revealed to be young Killmonger, stands looking up at the sky where the mysterious lights flickered. We had to maintain the lie. Gutted, T'Challa can't reconcile what he's just heard. He turns his back on Zuri. Dragging a large bag, Killmonger approaches mountain plains at the Wakandan border. In the distance, we see the four-seater plane. W'Kabi approaches as Killmonger drops the bag. What is this? Just a little gift. Killmonger opens the bag, revealing Klau's corpse. Wakabi's eyes widen, and his men draw their swords. "Who are you?" Ross suddenly opens his eyes in Shuri's lab and reaches for his gunshot wound, finding it astonishingly almost fully healed. Shuri tinkers with the circuitry of a pair of massive clawed vibranium gauntlets across the room as Ross sits up. "All right, where am I?" Startled, Shuri spins. "Don't scare me like that, colonizer." Who? My name is Everett." "Yes, I know. Everett Ross, former Air Force pilot and now CIA." "Right." Groggy, Ross gazes around at the completely unique technology. "Okay, is this Wakanda?" "Still working." "No, it's Kansas." "How long ago was Korea?" "Yesterday." "I don't think so. Bullet wounds don't just magically heal overnight." "They do here, but not by magic, by technology." "Don't touch anything. My brother will return soon." Leery, Shuri watches Ross wander about out of the corner of her eye. He walks over to the observation deck and gazes in awe at the exposed glowing rocks inside the vibranium mine. Suddenly, an automated mining cart whips between light panels, floating above a rail. "These train things, that's magnetic levitation, right?" "Obviously." "Obviously, but I've never seen it this efficient. The light panels, what are they?" "Sonic stabilizers." "Sonic what?" "In its raw form, vibranium is too dangerous to be transported at that speed, so I developed a way to temporarily deactivate it." Ross in disbelief. "There's vibranium on those trains?" "There's vibranium all around us. That's how I healed you." Ross tries to process this as a 3D projection of Okoye unexpectedly forms. "Where is T'Challa? His Kimoyo beads have been switched off." Ross, amazed, tries to touch the sand projection. "Well, we are not joined at the hip, Okoye." "A man showed up at the border who claims to have killed Klau." "What?" "Wakabi is transporting him as we speak to the palace. We need to find your brother." "An outsider?" "No, a Wakandan." An image of Killmonger from the border appears on Shuri's monitor. Then, Ross slowly walks into sight, staring at the screen. "He's not a Wakandan. He's one of ours." T'Challa and Nakia gaze off the side of a beautiful overlook. "He killed his own brother, and left a child behind with nothing. What kind of king, what kind of a man does that?" "No man is perfect, not even your father." "He didn't even give him a proper burial. My uncle Njobu betrayed us, but my father may have created something even worse." "Hey, look at me. You can't let your father's mistakes define who you are. You get to decide what kind of king you're going to be." They share a look as T'Challa's Kimoyo beads buzz. "Brother, you need to get here now." T'Challa and Nakia look at each other. T'Challa, Shuri, and Nakia listen as Ross briefs them on Killmonger. A body scan image of Killmonger is on Shuri's monitor. Eric Stevens, graduated Annapolis, age 19, MIT for grad school, joined the SEALs and went to Afghanistan, where he racked up confirmed kills like it was a video game. They started calling him Killmonger. He joined a JSOC ghost unit. Now these guys are serious. They can drop off the grid, so they can commit assassinations and take down governments. Did he reveal anything about his identity? He has a war dog tattoo, but we have no record of him. T'Challa and Shuri share a look. T'Challa sits on his throne surrounded by tribal elders, Ramonda, Shuri, Okoye, and the Dora. Is this man Wakandan or not? Tell us what is going on. Killmonger is escorted in by Wakabi. Wakabi tensely steps next to T'Challa as Killmonger takes his place before the circle. Speak. Wakabi translates for Killmonger. Speak. I'm standing in your house, serving justice to a man who stole your vibranium and murdered your people. Justice your king couldn't deliver. T'Challa walks close enough to Killmonger to be able to whisper to him, I don't care that you brought Cloud. The only reason I don't kill you where you stand is because I know who you are. Now what do you want? I want the throne. The entire room scoffs at this. Some elders even hold their heads back and laugh. My goodness. Y'all sitting up here comfortable. Must feel good. There's about 2 billion people all over the world that look like us, but their lives are a lot harder. Wakanda has the tools to liberate them all. And what tools are those? Vibranium. Your weapons. Our weapons will not be used to wage war on the world. It is not our way to be judge, jury, and executioner for people who are not our own. Not your own. But didn't life start here on this continent? So ain't all people your people? I am not king of all people. I am king of Wakanda. It is my responsibility to make sure our people are safe, and that vibranium does not fall into the hands of a person like you. The elders murmur at Killmonger's disrespect. They wait to see how T'Challa will respond. Then, Ramonda suddenly speaks. Son, we have entertained this charlatan for too long. Reject his request. Killmonger eyes the elders with an amused grin. Oh, I ain't requesting nothing. Ask who I am. You are Eric Stevens, an American black operative, a mercenary named Killmonger. That's who you are. Killmonger laughs. That's not my name, princess. Ask me, king. No, ask me. Take him away. Who are you? I am N'Jadaka, son of Prince N'Jobu. A hush falls over the room. The tribal elders knew N'Jobu. This changes everything. The son of N'Jobu? I found my daddy with panther claws in his chest. You ain't the son of a king, you're the son of a murderer. You're lying. Lies. I'm afraid not, Queen Mother. Wakabi produces Killmonger's gold necklace and ring, holding it up for everyone to see. The descendant of N'Jobu. Hey, Auntie. I'm exercising my blood right to challenge for the mantle of King and Black Panther. Utter silence as all eyes turn to T'Challa. T'Challa desperately wants to refuse, but knows that it isn't possible. Do not do this, T'Challa. As the son of N'Jobu, he is within his rights. He has no rights here. The challenge would take weeks to prepare. Weeks? I don't need weeks. The whole country ain't gotta be here. I just need him. And somebody, get me out of these chains. T'Challa, what do you know of this? I accept your challenge. Wakabi looks at T'Challa closely. On the Warrior Falls, in the challenge pool, T'Challa and Killmonger stand opposite one another. Killmonger snaps off a spear's shaft with his foot and holds a sword to go with the spearhead. The tribal elders, Wakabi and Dora, look on from their respective places. Shuri watches with Ramonda, but the stands are entirely empty. He will never beat T'Challa. He should have just come to the first challenge and gotten it over with. Ramonda looks concerned. She's not so sure. Zuri brings T'Challa the death herb, and he repeats the process, poisoning T'Challa while Killmonger stares on silently. The king will now have the strength of the Black Panther stripped away. Staring T'Challa down, Killmonger suddenly turns to Zuri. They recognize each other. Zuri looks away, ashamed. In the seating area, Nakia arrives through the tunnel and walks up to Okoye, who turns to her. Where is Agent Ross? I locked him in the office. He's not going anywhere. T'Challa holds his short spear and shield. He stares at his cousin. This is your last chance. Throw down your weapons, and we can handle this another way. Killmonger slams his blades into the stone. I lived my entire life waiting for this moment. I trained, I lied, I killed just to get here. He takes off his vest and tears at his shirt, revealing the scarification marks that go up his arm and across his entire back. They number in the hundreds. I killed in America, Afghanistan, Iraq. I took life from my own brothers and sisters right here on this continent. All this death just so I can kill you. T'Challa looks to Zuri and nods. Let the challenge begin. Killmonger tears forward with expert knife work and T'Challa with skilled defense. T'Challa parries several strikes, countering with a leg takedown, but hesitates with his sword and doesn't strike as they roll toward the edge of the waterfall. Back on their feet, they circle, and Killmonger lunges at T'Challa, who dodges. T'Challa manages to knock Killmonger off his feet, gaining the advantage. Yield! Killmonger ferociously bobs inside, but T'Challa lunges at Killmonger, giving him a superficial slash across his cheek. Fueled by rage, Killmonger begins to overpower T'Challa. He slices T'Challa's thigh. Snap out of it, T'Challa! Wielding both blades, Killmonger slashes deep across T'Challa's stomach, and then spins, cutting deep into his bicep. Hurt, T'Challa realizes his compassion was a mistake, and he must fight back. Blood leaks from his side. Killmonger dodges T'Challa's next attack. Stumbling, T'Challa is unable to avoid Killmonger's blade being thrust into his ribs. The elders gasp as Ramonda looks away and Shuri just stares. Killmonger snatches the knife out. T'Challa can barely stand. Then Killmonger punches him. Get up, Nakia says. He continues to punch T'Challa repeatedly until he topples over. This is for my father. Killmonger walks swiftly toward T'Challa to deliver his death blow, only to have a guilt-ridden Zuri stop him with his spear, knocking his blade away. Zuri, no! In the stands. Zuri! Zuri, don't! I am the cause of your father's death, not him. So take me. Regrouping, Killmonger grabs Zuri's spear. T'Challa labors to get up, but can't. I'll take you both, Uncle James. Killmonger skewers Zuri with his spear. Killmonger drives the spear in further, grabbing the blade with both hands. In death, Zuri falls with it into the shallow water, as T'Challa watches in utter torment. No! Zuri, no! Fueled by rage, T'Challa lifts back up to his feet. He charges Killmonger, who ducks his attacks, while talking to the audience. Is this your king? Huh? T'Challa swings his spear and Killmonger ducks. Is this your king, the Black Panther, who's supposed to lead you into the future? Come on, brother! Nakia looks on, trying to hide her tears with Okoye and Ayo. Is there nothing that can be done? Him? He's supposed to protect you? Killmonger ducks another attack from T'Challa and scoops him onto his shoulders. Killmonger walks to the edge of the challenge pool. No! No! Killmonger heaves T'Challa off the waterfall. Staggered, everyone watches T'Challa disappear below to his death. Ramonda screams, Nah, I'm your king. Nakia shuttles Shuri and Ramonda into the caves, while Okoye stays behind. We have to go, now! Queen Mother, let's go! Staggered, the new shaman gives the Panther necklace. Everyone slowly salutes Killmonger. In the tribal council room, the room seems empty, until we come upon Okoye, grieving alone. After a moment, the door opens, and Okoye quickly wipes her eyes. Pulling it together, she stands as Nakia approaches. The two women silently take each other in, sharing in their sorrow. The Queen and Shuri, are they safe? Nakia nods. Yes. Thank you. We should get to them immediately. I cannot. What? Though my heart is with you. We cannot turn our nation over to a man who showed up here only hours ago. He is of royal blood. He killed T'Challa in ritual combat. Does it really matter? Okoye quiets. You are the greatest warrior Wakanda has. Help me overthrow him before he becomes too strong. Okoye stares at Nakia in disbelief. Overthrow? Nakia, I am not a spy who can come and go as they choose. I am loyal to the throne, no matter who sits upon it. What are you loyal to? I loved him. I love my country too. Then serve your country. No, I save my country. Nakia takes off. In T'Challa's office, Ross walks around, admiring masks on the wall. He looks around as the door unlocks to Nakia, holding several blankets. Ross realizes something is wrong. What's wrong? Nakia tosses the blanket to Ross. The king is dead. Come with me, unless you want to join him. Ross's heart sinks. Killmonger enters the Hall of Kings, and a shaman guides him to a dirt plot, where they begin to bury him. Shuri and Ramonda, wrapped in blankets as a disguise, sit on a log surrounded by a thicket of trees. Grief-stricken, they hold on to each other closely. First Baba, now my brother. Mama, we didn't even get to bury him. Ramonda doesn't have an answer. The women hear a rustle in the trees. Ramonda moves to protect Shuri, holding one of Nakia's ring blades, as Nakia and Ross emerge from the foliage. Ramonda eyes Ross. It's me. Nakia, who is this man? He's a friend of T'Challa's. He saved my life. Ramonda studies Ross, then looks to Nakia. Where is Okoye? Okoye is not coming. She and Dora Milaje will serve the new king. Wait here. What has happened to our Wakanda? Nakia turns and heads into an even thicker batch of foliage. A shaman scoops water into the heart-shaped herb ceremonial vessel and grinds it. Killmonger opens his mouth. She pours the solution in as his eyes stay closed. Allow the heart-shaped herb to give you the power of the Black Panther and take you to the ancestral plane. We see the kids in Lake Merritt, Oakland, staring up at an aircraft with strange lights as it rises into the sky and speeds off. Young Killmonger runs into the apartment complex. Young Killmonger enters to find Njobu's dead body on the floor. He runs over to his dad, cradling him in his arms, sobbing. In the Hall of Kings, they scoop dirt on top of Killmonger's face. Adult Killmonger enters his childhood apartment and sees the place where his father died. He walks over to the wall and digs out a metal stash box from it. He breaks open the box and inside finds Njobu's journal, cash, and a pistol. Opening the diary, he finds details of Wakandan history and life, including drawings. He finds his father's ring on a necklace and puts it on. Then Killmonger looks up, and Njobu is sitting across from him, alive. What did I tell you about going into my things? What did you find? Killmonger is now replaced by his younger self. Your home. I gave you a key, hoping that you might see it someday. Young Killmonger flips down his lip, touching his Wakandan tattoo. Yes, the sunsets there are the most beautiful in the world, but I fear you still may not be welcome. Why? They will say you are lost. But I'm right here. Njobu doesn't have an answer for this. No tears for me? Everybody dies. It's just life around here. Njobu's gaze darkens with regret. Well, look at what I've done. I should have taken you back long ago. Young Killmonger has now been replaced by adult Killmonger, who sheds a tear. Instead, we are both abandoned here. Well, maybe your home is the only one that's lost. That's why they can't find us. Njobu stares at his son, heartbroken. Killmonger's eyes open, a new man, powerful, and ready to conquer the world. He gasps for air. As he climbs to his feet, encircled by Kingsguard and shamans. Breathe, my king, breathe! In the catacombs, Nakia drops through a hole into the warrens of tunnels, emerging in the Hall of Kings. Reveling in the power of the heart-shaped herb, Killmonger walks toward a dirt plot filled with heart-shaped herbs. The shamans trail behind him. The heart-shaped herb did that? The shaman nods. This is all of it? Yes, so when it comes time for another king, we will be ready. Another king. Yeah, go ahead and burn all that. Alarmed, the shamans don't move, hoping Killmonger doesn't mean it. But he does. My king, we cannot do that. It's our tradition. Killmonger smiles, then quickly grabs the shaman by the throat. When I tell you to do something, I mean that shit. Burn it all. He lets her go as she gasps for air. Shell-shocked, the shamans move into action. Nakia digs out a flawless, heart-shaped herb, and in an instant darts back for the catacombs, glancing back at Killmonger from the shadows. Killmonger stands in front of the dirt plots as the herb garden is engulfed in flames around him. Every elder, the border tribe military leaders, including Wakabi, the Kingsguard leaders, Okoye, and the Dora, prepare for a council meeting in the tribal council room. Killmonger strolls in, wearing the new gold Panther necklace. You know where I'm from. When black folks start revolutions, they never had the firepower or resources to fight their oppressors. Where was Wakanda, Yeah, all that ends today. We got spies embedded in every nation on Earth already in place. Killmonger stands and walks, looking at each of them in the eye. I know how colonizers think, so we're going to use their own strategy against them. We're going to send vibranium weapons out to our war dogs. They'll arm oppressed people all over the world, so they can finally rise up and kill those in power, and their children, and anyone else who takes their side. It's time they know the truth about us. We're warriors. The world's going to start over. And this time, we're on top. Killmonger sits. The sun will never set on the Wakandan Empire. Okoye looks to Wakabi. Wakanda has survived for so long by fighting only when necessary. Wakanda has survived in the past this way, yes, but the world is changing, General. Elders, it is getting smaller. The outside world is catching up, and soon it will be the conquerors or the conquered. I'd rather be the former. You heard your orders. Let's get to it. Wakabi salutes, while Okoye looks on. Nakia looks to Shuri. In the Wakandan mountains, on the outskirts, Nakia leads Shuri, Ramonda, and Ross through the bitter wind and harsh conditions. So, where are we going again? We're taking the heart-shaped herb to Jabari land. Heart-shaped herb? What is that? It gives whoever takes it heightened abilities. That's what made T'Challa so strong. Ramonda stops in her tracks. Nakia, I don't like this. The herb belongs to us. We may be creating a bigger monster with M'Baku. Nakia, you should take it yourself. I'm a spy with no army. I wouldn't stand a chance. We'll go. They keep walking. Suddenly they are surrounded by members of the Jabari army. Stay calm. M'Baku stares down from his throne at Nakia, Ramonda, and Shuri. He glowers at Ross for a long beat, unnerving everyone, before finally turning to Ramonda. My son was murdered in ritual combat. Were the odds fair? Yes, but... So it was less a murder than a defeat. This irks Shuri. Do not rub our noses in it. Silence! I make the pronouncements here, girl. Look, Your Highness, the new king is... M'Baku drowns out Ross's voice with loud barks. The surrounding Jabari follow suit. You cannot talk. One more word, and I will feed you to my children. Ross looks petrified, until M'Baku winks at Ramonda. I'm kidding. We are vegetarians. Stepping in, Nakia pulls out the heart-shaped herb. Great Gorilla M'Baku, this is why we are here, to offer this to you. An outsider sits on our throne. Only you can help us stop him. M'Baku considers, his ego stoked, but come with me. M'Baku leads Nakia, Ross, Ramonda, and Shuri to Jabari healers, working on T'Challa in a small hut in the snow. Impossible. Is he breathing? He's in a coma, barely clinging to life. On a riverbank in Jabariland, at dawn, a flashback from the day before, a tough, weathered Jabari fisherman walks along a frigid river with his yak. One of our fishermen found him at the edge of the river border. He brought him to me. The yak pulls a wooden sleigh, carrying T'Challa's body toward Jabariland. M'Baku, Ramonda, Nakia, Ross, and Shuri remain standing over T'Challa in the snow. Why do you have him in the snow? It's the only thing keeping him from joining the ancestors. We need to get him to my lab. I can heal him there. Take him. He'll be dead in seconds. Nakia, the herb. Ramonda takes the herb from Nakia and pushes past M'Baku, who looks on. I call upon the ancestors. I call upon Bast. I am here with my son T'Challa. Heal him. We must bury him. Resigned, Shuri and Nakia watch closely, sitting down next to her as Ramonda performs the ritual on T'Challa, pouring the solution in his mouth while praying in Zosa, then scooping the snow atop his body. Praise the ancestors. They all say this. Wake up, T'Challa. Wake up. T'Chaka beckons T'Challa towards several other Black Panthers and people in the distance. My son. He looks at his ancestors. The time has come for you to come home and be reunited with me. Why? Why didn't you bring the boy home? T'Chaka looks back at him. Why, Baba? He was the truth I chose to omit. You were wrong to abandon him. I chose my people. I chose Wakanda. Our future depended on... You were wrong. All of you were wrong. To turn your backs on the rest of the world. We let the fear of our discovery stop us from doing what is right. No more. I cannot stay here with you. I cannot rest while he sits on the throne. He's a monster of our own making. I must take the mantle back. I must right these wrongs. T'Chaka looks at his son, his disappointment giving way to a proud smile. T'Challa suddenly awakes and is pulled from the snow by Ramonda, unsure of where he is. Do you have a blanket? They embrace. T'Challa turns to see Nakia and Shuri as well. The four of them embrace as M'Baku looks on. Our entire team of heroes is in M'Baku's throne room. T'Challa, Nakia, Shuri, Ramonda, and Ross talk. Killmonger has the full support of our military. He burned the garden of heart-shaped herb. Of course he did. T'Challa turns to Ross. That's what he was trained to do. His unit used to work with the CIA to destabilize foreign countries. They would always strike at transition of power, like an election year or the death of a monarch. You get control of the government, the military, our resources, the Great Mound, our vibranium, all my designs. He will send our weapons all over the world. T'Challa turns to Nakia. mentioning to Shuri and Ramonda, "You must get them out of Wakanda safely." "What? What about you?" "The challenge will have to continue. T'Challa, we will not leave Wakanda. It is my duty to keep you safe. If he gets control of our technology, nowhere will be safe." Shuri pulls T'Challa's panther tooth necklace from her pocket and places it on his neck. T'Challa smiles. "The Black Panther lives, and when he fights for the fate of Wakanda, I will be there right beside him." "As will I." T'Challa smiles. He looks to Nakia and Ramonda, who looks back at him with confidence. "I'm in too." The Wakandans cut Ross a look. "What? You're going to need all the help you can get." The Wakandans smile at Ross as M'Baku interrupts. "Are you done? Are you done? Could you give me and Lord M'Baku a moment?" Everyone exits, and M'Baku gazes at T'Challa. "Thank you. I owed you a great debt. A life for a life. Consider it paid. Please allow my mother to stay here. No harm will come to her, I give you my word. You know, I could use an army as well." M'Baku laughs. "I bet you could, but no. I will give no Jabari lives toward your cause. It is our cause. It is for all of us. Us? You are the first king to come here for centuries, and now you speak of us? I cannot speak for past kings, but an enemy sits on the throne right now. We both know the power of vibranium. If Killmonger gets control of it, who do you think he will come for next?" M'Baku sits. "We will not help you." T'Challa walks out, leaving M'Baku to think. A train car carrying carts full of vibranium moves across the ground. It then takes a turn up the sides and up to the surface, out to Mount Bashenga, where several Border Tribe warriors and Kingsguard load the cargo onto the bottom of a Talon fighter. The Dora Milaje keep watch in the distance. Killmonger, dressed in casual clothes, his gold panther tooth necklace exposed. With Wakabi and Okoye flanking him, he walks around impatiently, as it is revealed that cargo is being loaded onto an entire fleet of Wakandan aircraft. Everything is on schedule. Have the spies been alerted? Yes. Some have been resistant to our new mission, but the war dogs in London, New York, and Hong Kong are standing by. We'll strike there first. The others will come around. Killmonger picks up a Kingsguard spear. Look at this. A handheld sonic cannon powerful enough to stop a tank. Untraceable by metal detectors. And we got thousands of them. The world's gonna find out exactly who we are. Across from them, a Talon fighter takes off, loaded with cargo. Killmonger watches, then turns to Wakabi. As they smile, the Talon fighter explodes in the air above them, startling Killmonger, Wakabi, Okoye, and the remaining Wakandans. They watch in shock as the debris rains down from the sky. Killmonger looks closely, trying to make something out. Killmonger, Okoye, and Wakabi line up at the lip of the great mound, surrounded by hundreds of border tribesmen. They look on with confusion, as several hundred yards away at the foot of the mountain, the Panther emerges from the wreckage, suit engaged in all his glory. He starts walking toward the top of the hill. Okoye smiles. He lives. The Panther walks close to the lip of the mound and retracts his mask. Njaraka! What's up? I never yielded, and as you can see, I am not dead. All that challenge shit is over with. I'm the king now. He turns to the king's guard. Get those planes in the air. Carry out the mission. Shuri, now! Copy that. In Shuri's lab, wearing blanket disguises, Nakia, Ross, and Shuri duck around a corner, avoiding detection by a group of border tribesmen running outside. Go, go, go! Come on, Ross! Killmonger stands with Wakabi at the top of the mound. Wakabi, kill this clown. Wakabi, the challenge is not complete. What will we do? The Border Tribe soldiers look on at T'Challa and grow visibly nervous. Border Tribe? Aye aye! Fumbali! Wakabi pulls his sword and triggers the sonic field around it. He points it toward T'Challa, and the Border Tribesmen line up in a battle formation and charge towards T'Challa. A dragon flyer takes off overhead and leads the charge downhill. Okoye turns to Killmonger. Your heart is so full of hatred. You are not fit to be king. She slams her spear, and the Dora fall in line behind her as Killmonger stares her down. Killmonger pulls his blades, activates his Panther suit from his necklace, as Talon fighters take off in the background. Ayo, the king! Some of the Dora take off down the hill to fight for T'Challa. Okoye calls for the attack. One of the Dora jumps at Killmonger Panther, followed by the other Dora. They attack. A third Dora jumps and sidekicks Killmonger Panther. The Dragon Flyer overtakes the Border Tribesmen and begins shooting sonic blasts at T'Challa. They create a large impact on the ground as he runs. The Border Tribesmen continue to run down toward T'Challa and fall into a phalanx formation. The vibranium stitching on their blankets activates, and high-tech sonic shields emerge from the blankets. They build on each other. The shields stretch out and up, making a barrier impossible for the Panther to pass. The Panther superjumps over the shield as it rises, hurtling, barely escaping its vertical edge. He lands behind the first wave of Border Tribesmen, delivering a massive sonic blow that sends them flying, as well as lifting some of the spilled spears in the air. The Panther grabs a spear and with expert precision throws it at the Dragon Flyer. The spear explodes on impact, sending the Dragon Flyer careening toward the ground right over T'Challa's head. Wakabi sees this and leads the charge of the second wave of Border Tribesmen down toward T'Challa. They engage him, swinging their blades wildly and using their shields to corner him. Ayo and the Dora collide with the second wave of Border Tribesmen, fighting them off with precision. Engaged with the Border Tribesmen, T'Challa lands a hard blow on Wakabi that sends him back through the grass. Wakabi, stop this! Stop this now! Wakabi runs on top of the large rock to gain a vantage point and pulls out a large horn. No! Wakabi blows on the horn. We push in on the Dragon Flyer wreckage. As the rumbling sound is heard, suddenly Armored Rhino number 1 crashes through the bit of the wreckage wearing a red blanket. Then a second Rhino, Armored Rhino number 2, crashes through the other side, bigger and faster than the last, wearing a white blanket. The camera continues to push in as, boom, the Dragon Flyer is split into two, and M20, Wakabi's personal rhino, emerges right toward camera. The Border Tribesmen lift their swords and cheer as the rhinos run past them. Wakabi hops on and goes right for the pack of Dora, sending a third of them flying. Back in the lab, Shuri, Nakia, and Ross are now running down the ramp, throwing off their disguises. Shuri motions for a sand table to rise, revealing a new tech armor rack. She grabs the communication devices. Nakia and I will get control of the Royal Talon with this. Okay, so what do I do? Shuri slips a Kimoyo bead bracelet on Ross's hand. You have to fly it. What? You were a great pilot. Don't worry, I'll guide you through it. It's just like riding a hoverbike. You guys have hoverbikes? Shuri raises a sand table. She hurries back to the first table, grabs the gauntlets, and points out some Dora armor. Nakia, take that. I'm not a Dora. Just put it on, it's armor. Shuri runs down the ramp. Nakia begrudgingly grabs the Dora Milaje uniform and runs after her. Good luck, Agent Ross. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. We are counting on you. Okoye jumps over and throws her spear at Killmonger. It bounces off. Okoye catches in stride. She's on the attack. The Dora Milaje advance on Killmonger, but Dora Milaje number 1 strikes too quickly, and Killmonger uses his superior strength and speed to grab her mid-strike, using her as a shield to hold off Okoye and the other Dora. Wakanda forever! Killmonger then slits her throat with his vibranium sword. Okoye, devastated, leads another attack on Killmonger. As Nakia and Shuri sneak out onto the deck and plant the Kimoyo bead puck on the Royal Talon fighter, Ross paces, waiting for word from Shuri or Nakia about what to do. Then suddenly the sand table drops to the ground, revealing an F-16 cockpit. Remote pilot system activated. I made it American style for you. Get in. Ross hops in and starts up the ship. The Royal Talon fighter clumsily takes off, its thrusters blowing back 2 Kingsguard pilots. Yes! Go, we can't let these weapons get beyond Wakanda. Alright, I'm on it. The Royal Talon fighter starts in one direction, does a U-turn, and takes off after the other ships. T'Challa runs full speed next to Rhino number 2, swings around its horn, and does a takedown maneuver, causing the Rhino to fall into a trench left by the wing of the Talon fighter. T'Challa flips out of the trench while the Rhino is trapped by the steep incline. Killmonger is now surrounded by Okoye and 2 Dora. They continue to back him up with synchronized hits until they surround him with a triple spear trap around his neck. Lock! Get him down! They tighten their grip around his neck. Get the necklace! But Killmonger drops to his knees and expels his suit's kinetic energy, blowing the Dora down the hill. Nakia takes off toward Killmonger. Wakanda forever! He moves toward them with rage in his eyes. He engages with Shuri and Nakia in battle. Nakia holds her own with her advanced ring blades, while Shuri strafes from the side with her Panther gauntlets, shooting Killmonger from a distance. Ross flies the RTF over Wakanda and sees the group of aircraft in the distance. Okay, Shuri, I got him. What do I do? Shoot them down, genius! All right. Ross places his hand on the firing mechanism. Here goes nothing. A red targeting cursor pops up on the display. Ross reacts, then guides the cursor over the cargo ship and fires. The RTF goes into battle mode. Weapons pop out from openings all over the craft in quick succession. The Royal Talon fighter launches a sonic blast that tears through the wing of the first cargo ship, causing it to spiral down into the docking shores below. Ross watches as the cargo ship drops. All right, I got him. The Dragon Flyer pilots see the cargo ship drop and turn back around toward the RTF. 3 Dragon Flyers immediately begin firing at the Royal Talon fighter. Oh, shit. The Panther tangles with the border tribe, but is suddenly smashed in the back by M20 and is sent flying through the air and into a large rock. Killmonger lands 2 hard swiping blows on Nakia, slashing her arm and her leg, then throwing her down the hill, leaving him alone with Shuri, who blasts away at Killmonger, until he suddenly springs at her, grabbing her gauntlets with his claws and breaks them. On the ground, Panther is suddenly swarmed by border tribesmen and pinned down, stabbed, kicked, and slashed with blades by the mob. He sees Killmonger in the distance closing in on Shuri and expels the kinetic energy in his suit. Wham! Shuri! The dog pile is launched off through the air. What's up, princess? You'll never be the true king. Killmonger ominously edges closer and flips his broken spear, preparing to go in for the kill. Shuri ducks as Panther tackles Killmonger in the back, sending them both plunging down into a mine shaft. Brother! Both falling down the massive cavern, Panther and Killmonger fight on their way down. Panther crashes to the bottom of the vibranium mine, wounded. He rolls over and barely dodges a knee drop from Killmonger. The 2 exchange blows, Killmonger getting the better of T'Challa in his exposed areas, while T'Challa is getting nowhere. They both go for a super punch and knock each other back. T'Challa lands on his back and looks up at the sonic stabilizer. He radios to Shuri. Shuri? Brother? Turn on the train on the bottom track. But the stabilizers will deactivate your suit. You won't have protection. Neither will he. Okay. Shuri activates a button on her kimoyo beads. In the vibranium mine, down the track from Panther and Killmonger's fight, we see a light come on in the train port. As they fight, the panels light up in succession, and we see a silent maglev train hurtling right at them. Both fighters evade the train at the last second, as the train whips past, creating a barrier between them too big to jump over. T'Challa stands up as his suit partially retracts into his necklace, leaving his skin exposed. Killmonger, on the other side of the train, looks at his malfunctioning suit in confusion. He turns and looks back at the stabilizer. I don't need a suit to kill you. They look at each other from across the blinding fast train. Your reign is over. You sat up here safe and protected. You want to see us become just like the other people you hate so much? Divide and conquer the land as they did? No. I learn from my enemies and beat them at their own game. You have become them. You will destroy the world, Wakanda included. The world took away everything from me, everything I ever loved, and I'm going to make sure we're even. I'm going to track down anyone who would even think about being loyal to you, and I'm going to put their ass in the dirt, right next to Zuri. Hatred flashes over T'Challa's eyes as he re-engages his mask and the train clears. Killmonger engages his mask, and they leap at each other again. Shuri moves to Nakia's side and helps her up. Nakia, are you alright? I'm okay. You? Yes. Let's go. They join the fight with Okoye and Ayo. Ross begins maneuvering the controls like an expert pilot. He guides the ship through a canyon, chasing the remaining cargo ship, while firing at the 3 dragonflyers that are all attempting to take him down. Shuri, I've lost one of them, but 2 are on my tail. The cargo ship hurtles ahead, while the RTF navigates dragonflyer blasts and rock outcroppings. The building begins to shake in Shuri's lab. Ross is confused. What the hell was that? The lab is under attack. What? Where? Deactivating hologram. The display in front of Ross comes down, revealing a massive dragonflyer firing sonic blasts outside the windows of the lab. Ross jumps at the sight of this, realizing he's now sitting in a death trap. Ross, you have to get out of there now! How long do I have? Glass integrity is at 50%. Ross looks at the window and thinks about it for a beat. He regrips the pilot handles. Put me back in. Ross! Ross! The ship projection comes back up and Ross continues to fly. As our heroes fight, the border tribesmen continue to use their advanced shields to close them off to an impenetrable circle. Okoye looks around, searching for an option for escape through the sea of border tribesmen. We find Wakabi in the distance, perched atop M20, looking back at her. Surrender now! You have 3 seconds to lay down your weapons! Okoye looks back resolute. 1, 2... The sound of an attack is heard from behind Wakabi. Loud chants seemingly come from every direction as the entire perimeter of the border tribe is showing signs of being breached. Shuri, Okoye, Nakia, and Ayo look around confused as one of the interior shield-holding border tribesmen is suddenly lifted up by his collar, his shield disappearing as a result. We tilt up to reveal M'Baku holding him with one hand, and 6 Jabari warriors behind him. Witness the might of Jabari firsthand! M'Baku throws the border tribesmen into the sonic shield, and we go around the horn to see the Jabari warriors tearing through the border tribe perimeter with their wooded weapons. M'Baku, seeing the breaks in the interior shield, calls for his troops to move forward. Abya! He jumps down from the rock, followed by his troops. Okoye sees this and calls her troops forward. Fambili! Okoye leads the women forward through the gaps in the shield. M'Baku breaks through, swinging his knobkerrie to change the tide of the battle. Abia! Killmonger and Panther continue to brawl in the mine. Killmonger lands a deadly headbutt, and an oncoming train knocks them both to opposite sides of the track. As the train passes, Killmonger picks up the knife that fell into the mines along with them. The RTF does battle with the Dragonflyers, using the sonic blasters to shoot down 2 of them, but taking significant damage. Ross has a clear line of sight to the last Talon fighter. Glass integrity is at 15%. The 2 remaining Dragonflyers shoot vibranium drills into the hobbled RTF, slowing it down, allowing the Talon fighter to pull away. The drills send an electric pulse into the RTF. Critical weapons failure. Shuri, the last cargo ship is almost at the border. They've got me trapped with some kind of cables. Make an X with your arms. Confused, Ross crosses his fists in front of him. Sonic overload initiated. Now break it! Ross swings his arms open. The RTF lights charge up to the max and emit a powerful explosion of sonic energy, decimating the cables along with the Dragonflyers they are attached to. The Royal Talon fighters' lights go dead, and the massive ship begins to drop out of the sky, falling end over end toward the ground below. System rebooting in 5, 4, 3, 2. The RTF falls closer and closer to the ground. A bead of sweat drips off of Ross's temple. 1. System rebooted. The Royal Talon fighter's lights come back on, and the sonic emitters at the bottom of the ship kick back to full capacity, causing it to stop on a dime, hovering 12 feet from the ground. The sheer force from the sonic emission cracks the ground, leaving a somatic signature. Ross punches it, heading straight for the last cargo ship. The cargo ship makes it over the last mountain of the Wakandan border and activates its cloaking technology. The Royal Talon fighter guns in the air at 45-degree angle, and bam! It explodes and collides with the cargo ship, deactivating its cloaking mode and causing pieces of both ships to rain down over the Wakandan border. Ross's cockpit disintegrates back to a pile of sand. Ross drops into it. Yes, we did it! Great, now get out of there! Ross gets up and heads toward the ramp in the lab as the glass blows out. M'Baku, surrounded by border tribesmen, is held up while Wakabi, atop M20, comes charging straight at him, giving him nowhere to go. But at the last second, Okoye steps in front of M'Baku, staring M20 down, who gallops toward her and stops at the very last second. His horn inches from Okoye's face. M20 licks her face lovingly. Wakabi dismounts and approaches Okoye slowly. Okoye points her spear at him. Drop your weapon. Will you kill me, my love? For Wakanda? Without question. She draws her weapon. Wakabi sees the fire in Okoye's eyes. He looks around at the battlefield, where the remaining border tribesmen are surrendering to the Jabari and Dora. Wakabi looks at Okoye for a long beat, then throws his sword into the dirt and kneels in front of her. Killmonger slashes at T'Challa with the spear, backing T'Challa up toward the lip of the track. As the train comes speeding toward them, both of their suits retract, and T'Challa holds Killmonger off as Killmonger pushes the blade of the spear toward his face. This is it for you, cousin. T'Challa turns toward the train and sees that it's about to end. He lets Killmonger swing towards him and dodges, backing up even closer to the edge of the track, and Killmonger swings again. But this time, T'Challa punches Killmonger's arm, jarring the blade loose and sending it flying into the air. T'Challa then does a rolling armbar takedown as the broken spear flips through the air. We track the spear as the sonic stabilization field turns off and the train passes the two fighters. The broken spear drops, T'Challa catches it with his right hand and slams it into Killmonger's chest, just as both their suits form around them. Killmonger removes his helmet, then looks down at the blade which is buried in his chest. T'Challa, realizing this is it, removes his mask as well. Hell of a move. Killmonger struggles to breathe. My pop said Wakanda was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. He promised he was going to show it to me someday. Can you believe that? A kid from Oakland running around believing in fairy tales. Killmonger winces from the pain. T'Challa stands and picks Killmonger up, dragging him to his feet. T'Challa supports Killmonger as both men ride a vibranium lift toward the mouth of the mine. T'Challa stands at the top of the great mound next to Killmonger, who kneels, watching the sun creep down behind the horizon. It's beautiful. T'Challa thinks for a long beat. Maybe we can still heal you. Killmonger thinks on this. Why, so you can just lock me up? Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships, 'cause they knew death was better than bondage. Killmonger pulls the knife out of his chest, killing himself instantly. T'Challa looks down at his cousin's now lifeless body and becomes emotional. In full royal regalia, T'Challa strolls in with confidence. Shuri, Ramonda, the Dora, including Okoye, Ayo, and all the elders, even M'Baku, are present. T'Challa and Nakia stand together. Thank you. You saved me. You saved my family, our nation. There is nothing to thank me for. It is our duty to. It was my duty to fight for what I love. I should have... T'Challa kisses her. You can't blame me. I almost died. Nakia looks at him deeply and kisses him back. Stay. I think I know a way you can still fulfill your calling. Please, stay here. Nakia looks at T'Challa with curious eyes. She kisses him. T'Challa and Shuri, dressed in subtle clothing, look at the now abandoned apartment building in Oakland. 6 kids, mostly black, some Latino, play 3-on-3 on a rugged basketball hoop. When you said you would take me to California for the first time, I thought you meant Coachella or Disneyland. Why here? This is where our father killed our uncle. Shuri looks at T'Challa, shocked by his bluntness. She turns and stares closely at the building. We see her point of view of large signage that hints the building is soon to be demolished. They're tearing it down. Good. They're not tearing it down. I bought this building. Shuri turns to him confused. And that building? And that one? This will be the first Wakandan International Outreach Center. Shuri smiles at the surprise. Nakia will oversee the social outreach, and you will spearhead the science and information exchange. Shuri turns to T'Challa in shock at what this means. You're kidding! T'Challa hits a button on his Kimoyo bead, and the Royal Talon fighter comes out of cloaking, revealing itself to have been parked behind the kids playing basketball. A young black kid turns to see the ship, as the other kids collectively lose their shit. What? What the hell is this? That's like a Bugatti spaceship. Whoa, it came out of nowhere. Did you see that? What? They run up to the ship and touch it, unsure at first. We can take this back to the house, y'all. We could pull up to school in this. Hey, look, we can break it apart and sell it on eBay. Everybody get like $1 million apiece. She starts off towards the kids, walking past the young black one. I wouldn't do that if I were you guys. Where you come from? From Wakanda. What's Wakanda? The young black kid approaches T'Challa. Hey, is this yours? Who are you? T'Challa thinks on this and smiles. The title appears, Black Panther. In a post-credit scene, T'Challa walks, flanked by Nakia, Okoye, and Ayo. Several assembly members move around the room, preparing for a meeting. Suddenly, a hush falls over the hall as the Wakandans enter and walk up to the center pit. "My name is King T'Challa, son of King T'Chaka. I am the sovereign ruler of the nation of Wakanda, and for the first time in our history, we will be sharing our knowledge and resources with the outside world. Wakanda will no longer watch from the shadows. We cannot. We must not. We will work to be an example of how we as brothers and sisters on this earth should treat each other. Now more than ever, illusions of division threaten our very existence. We all know the truth. More connects us than separates us. In time of crisis, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers. We will find a way to look after one another, as if we were one single tribe." The audience of world leaders look around bemused, wondering what Wakanda could possibly have to offer. The French ambassador can't help but lean into his microphone. "With all due respect, King T'Challa, what can a nation of farmers offer to the rest of the world?" There are a few chuckles from the gallery. Nakia, Okoye, and Ayo share a look. T'Challa smiles. In a Wakandan medicine hut, we open to 3 necropolitan children with painted faces, looming directly over something, staring with curiosity. The camera moves, startling the children who quickly flee the hut. The kids race out of the hut and over to Shuri. "Are you playing around with that man again?" "No." "You're teasing him again." Bucky exits the hut to the sight of a beautiful Wakandan lakeside. He takes it all in with a deep breath. Outside the hut are a Wakandan shaman, men and women, and Shuri embracing the 3 giggling children. The 2 Dora Milaje observe Shuri from a close distance. The white wolf. Bucky settles next to Shuri, taking in her view of the lake. "Good morning, Sergeant Barnes." Bucky. "How are you feeling?" "Good, thank you." Shuri smiles. "Come, much more for you to learn." He follows Shuri toward the other huts. That's about it for Black Panther 2019. I hope you enjoyed this film as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you do want to see more movie readings, or if you have specific suggestions on movie readings you would like to hear, please leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next movie reading.